Tonight we are walking beneath a sky where the stars seem almost close enough to touch, their pale light resting softly upon endless rows of silent vines. The air carries the sweet fragrance of ripening grapes mixed with cool mountain mist, while somewhere beyond the hills a lone flute sings a melody no traveler can quite follow. The ancient Greeks believed that, on nights like this, the boundary between the ordinary world and the divine became wonderfully uncertain. It was said that if you listened carefully enough, you might hear laughter drifting through the darkness, followed by footsteps that left no mark upon the earth. Those sounds belonged to a god unlike any other. Yet the greatest mystery was never how powerful he became. It was how someone born amid fear and tragedy could one day teach both gods and mortals the meaning of joy. So before we continue tonight's journey, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy exploring these ancient stories together, and if you feel comfortable. Let everyone know where you are listening from by sharing your location and local time in the comments. It is always comforting to imagine people around the world gathering beneath the same night sky to wander through these ancient stories together. You continue along the narrow path, where moonlight glimmers upon polished olive leaves and tiny insects hum quietly among the grasses. Every few steps the breeze shifts, carrying with it another scent, wild thyme, fresh earth, pine resin warmed during the day, but now slowly surrendering its heat to the coming night. The silence never feels empty here. Instead, it seems filled with expectation, as though the mountains themselves are waiting for someone to arrive. The path bends toward an old vineyard whose twisted vines have grown for generations beyond memory. Their trunks resemble ancient hands reaching from the soil, scarred by countless seasons, yet still producing fruit each autumn. To the people of Greece, vines were more than plants. They represented patience, endurance, and transformation. A hard, bitter grape could become sweet wine through time, darkness, and careful tending. Perhaps it was no coincidence that the god whose story begins here would also become a master of transformation. The first mystery surrounding Dionysus did not begin with his birth. It began with whispers. Travelers spoke of distant valleys, where shepherds sometimes heard laughter echoing across empty hillsides. Hunters claimed to glimpse shadows dancing among oak trees before sunrise. Sailors returning to quiet harbors insisted they had seen strange lights moving across lonely islands where no villages stood. Most dismissed these tales. Some smiled politely. Others crossed themselves before forgotten shrines and hurried home before sunset. No one agreed on what these signs meant. Surviving traditions offer different explanations. And even today, historians continue to debate whether these stories were woven together from many local beliefs that slowly became one. Another interpretation survives in scattered fragments, suggesting that long before Dionysus received his familiar name, people already sensed a mysterious divine presence hidden within forests, mountains, and fertile fields. Whatever the truth may have been, ancient Greece seemed to be waiting for someone. You can almost feel that expectation yourself. Above you rises Mount Cithaeron, its slopes wrapped in silver mist. Higher still stand dark pines whose branches sway gently against the stars. Somewhere among those distant peaks lies a cave where sacred fires occasionally burn during forgotten festivals. Their glow appears and disappears like breathing. Nearby, an elderly shepherd pauses beside his flock. He studies the night sky longer than usual. Then he quietly murmurs a prayer, not to Zeus, not to Apollo, not even to Athena. Instead, he speaks words passed down from grandparents whose names have already faded into dust. He asks whatever unseen spirit wanders these mountains to bless the coming harvest and spare the vineyards from disease. Perhaps he knows more than he realizes. The seasons continue their patient rhythm. Spring flowers become summer fruit. Summer fades into autumn. Autumn yields once more to winter rain. Yet something feels different. Birds arrive earlier than expected. Vines produce unusually heavy clusters. Wild ivy climbs abandoned shrines with astonishing speed, covering cracked marble in bright green leaves. Ivy would later become one of Dionysus's most recognizable symbols, remaining alive throughout every season. Unlike delicate blossoms that disappeared after only a few weeks, ivy endured through heat, cold, and darkness alike. It quietly suggested that life always found a way to return. You stop beside a weathered altar where traces of burned incense still cling to the stone. The scent is faint, almost gone, but not entirely. Someone has visited recently. Fresh olive branches rest upon the altar beside a small clay cup filled with dark red wine. No one remains nearby. Whoever left the offering wished to remain unseen. This simple gift reflects another mystery. Wine itself already existed in many places before Dionysus, or so some scholars believe. Yet among the Greeks, the drink gradually became inseparable from one divine figure whose story explained not only its pleasures, but also its dangers. Wine could comfort the lonely, strengthen friendships, and accompany sacred ceremonies. It could also cloud judgment, awaken hidden emotions, and reveal parts of the human soul normally concealed beneath daily routines. Who could possibly govern such contradictions? Only a god who understood contradiction himself. Far across Greece, another sign appears. A woman sleeping beside the sea dreams of green vines growing across the surface of calm water. Instead of sinking, the vines bloom with white flowers beneath the moon. From their branches hang clusters of stars rather than grapes. She wakes before dawn, unable to explain the dream. Years later, she will still remember every detail. Dreams occupied a special place in Greek belief. Some were dismissed as ordinary wanderings of the sleeping mind. Others were considered messages sent by powers beyond human understanding. Ancient writers often disagreed about which dreams deserved attention, leaving later generations with beautiful uncertainty rather than definite answers. That uncertainty lingers tonight. The breeze grows cooler. Somewhere in the darkness, an owl calls once, then silence returns. As you continue walking, you notice tiny footprints crossing the dusty path. They resemble those of a child, yet they suddenly vanish among smooth stones where no tracks should disappear. Nearby stands a fig tree whose branches move despite the absence of wind. Nothing frightening occurs, nothing dramatic, only small impossibilities. This is how many ancient myths begin. Not with thunder or blazing fire, but with subtle changes that invite careful attention. A missing footprint, an unexpected flower, a melody heard where no musician stands. Perhaps the gods preferred gentle arrivals. Perhaps they wished to see who was truly watching. In a nearby village, families gather outside their homes after supper. Oil lamps cast warm circles of light upon whitewashed walls. Children chase one another through narrow streets, while elders exchange stories beneath grape arbors. Laughter rises naturally into the evening air. No one realizes that joy itself is about to receive a divine guardian. For generations, people have prayed for rain, healthy harvests, safe births, and victory in war. Few have considered asking the gods how to celebrate being alive. That lesson has not yet come, nor has the child who will one day teach it. Beyond every conversation, beyond every peaceful vineyard, another force quietly watches. High upon Olympus, Hera remains ever alert to the choices of her husband, Zeus. Her wisdom is great, but so is her memory. Every betrayal leaves another invisible wound. Every secret eventually casts a shadow across heaven itself. She senses nothing yet, or perhaps she senses everything. The oldest storytellers never entirely agreed. Some believed destiny moved openly before the gods. Others wondered whether even Olympus sometimes discovered fate only after events had already begun. If so, then destiny has already taken its first silent step. Far away, beneath another stretch of star-filled sky, a young princess named Semele still sleeps peacefully, unaware that her own life is slowly becoming part of a story larger than kingdoms, larger than mountains, perhaps even larger than Olympus itself. She cannot hear the distant laughter drifting across forgotten vineyards. She cannot know why shepherds have begun whispering unusual prayers. She cannot understand why dreams have become strangely vivid throughout the land, but the threads have already begun weaving together, invisible, patient, certain, and before many seasons have passed, the greatest mystery of all will no longer be hidden within quiet hillsides and moonlit vines. It will be carried within the heart of a single woman. There, destiny will prepare the impossible birth of the god who would forever change how mortals understood joy, sorrow, freedom, and the fragile beauty of being human. Yet that extraordinary beginning still waits beyond the next turning of fate. The first light of dawn arrives quietly, brushing the eastern horizon with pale gold, while dew gathers upon the vineyards you wandered through only hours before. Birds awaken one by one, their songs echoing across gentle hills that seem blissfully unaware of the destiny unfolding beyond human sight. The world still appears ordinary, yet beneath its familiar rhythms, an immortal heart has already begun to beat with anticipation. You leave the vineyards behind and follow a winding road toward the ancient city of Thebes. Its walls rise proudly from the plain, built of weathered stone that has watched generations come and go. Smoke curls from household fires. Merchants prepare their stalls. Potters shape fresh clay beneath open courtyards. Children chase one another through narrow streets, while elderly women sprinkle water across dusty thresholds to cool the morning air. Life feels peaceful. That is often how fate begins. Not with thunder, with quiet mornings. Among the royal family of Thebes lives a young princess named Semele. Unlike many women whose names survive only as brief mentions in forgotten myths, Semele carries a presence that lingers long after her story is told. Ancient poets describe her beauty. Yet beauty alone never explains why Zeus noticed her. Some surviving traditions suggest it was her kindness towards strangers. Others believed her quiet devotion at forgotten shrines drew the king of the gods. Historians continue to debate which traditions preserve the oldest memories. Whatever first attracted Zeus, something extraordinary soon followed. You imagine Semele walking through a shaded courtyard beneath flowering vines. Warm sunlight filters between fig leaves, while the scent of crushed rosemary drifts from nearby gardens. She pauses beside a small fountain where water slips gently over polished stone. She believes she is alone. She is not. Zeus watches from beyond mortal sight. The ruler of Olympus has taken many forms throughout his long existence. He has appeared as storms, birds, wandering travelers, and radiant kings. Yet when he approaches Semele, ancient storytellers often imagine him clothed as a noble prince, concealing the unbearable brilliance that no mortal eyes could safely behold. He speaks softly, not with commands, with curiosity. Their meetings remain hidden beneath quiet evenings and secluded groves where olive trees sway gently in the sea breeze. No palace celebrations announce their affection. No priests record their conversations. The relationship grows in secrecy, surrounded by the sweet fragrance of blooming jasmine and the distant calls of night birds. For a time, happiness seems possible, but Olympus is never free from watchful eyes. High above the clouds, Hera notices subtle changes in Zeus's behavior. The queen of the gods has endured countless betrayals, each one leaving another invisible scar upon her immortal heart. Modern readers sometimes remember only her anger, yet ancient traditions occasionally reveal another layer beneath it. Hera is not merely jealous, she is deeply wounded by repeated deception. Pain changes people, even gods. You can almost feel the cold stillness settling across Olympus as suspicion slowly becomes certainty. Hera does not confront Zeus immediately. Instead, she waits. Patience has always been one of her greatest strengths. Far below, Semele discovers she is carrying a child, no ordinary child. Although she cannot yet understand the future, strange signs begin surrounding her daily life. Wild vines bloom unexpectedly outside her chamber windows. Gentle animals approach without fear. Birds gather upon rooftops at unusual hours, singing melodies unfamiliar to local shepherds. Some servants whisper, others avoid meeting her eyes. Ancient people rarely dismissed unusual signs as coincidence, an unexpected flowering, an uncommon dream, or a strangely fearless animal might all suggest that unseen powers were moving nearby. Another interpretation survives in several regional traditions, proposing that nature itself recognized divine life before humans ever could. If so, the earth already knows what Semele cannot. Within her grows the future Dionysus. One evening, while warm rain falls beyond palace walls, Hera sets her plan into motion. She does not arrive as herself. She disguises her immortal form beneath the appearance of an elderly nurse, someone whose gentle voice naturally inspires trust. Her footsteps echo softly along polished corridors until she reaches Semele's private chamber. Oil lamps flicker. The room smells faintly of cedarwood and fresh linen. Outside, thunder murmurs somewhere beyond distant mountains. The old woman smiles kindly. At first, she praises Semele's happiness. She admires her confidence. Then, almost casually, she asks a single question. How can you truly know that your mysterious visitor is Zeus? The words seem harmless, yet they settle inside Semele's thoughts like tiny seeds. Doubt rarely arrives all at once. It grows quietly. The disguised Hera continues. Any man, she suggests, could claim to be king of the gods. If Zeus truly loves you, surely he would reveal himself exactly as he appears upon Olympus. Nothing more, nothing less. When the old woman departs, silence fills the chamber once again, but peace has already vanished. You almost wish you could warn Semele. You want to tell her that some truths are too powerful for mortal eyes. Yet myths rarely allow witnesses to change destiny. Days pass. The question refuses to disappear. Each time Zeus visits, Semele smiles warmly, yet uncertainty lingers behind her eyes. Finally, unable to bear her doubts any longer, she asks for a promise. Zeus swears by the sacred river Styx. Among the gods, no oath carries greater weight. Even Zeus cannot break it. Only then does Semele make her request. She wishes to see him exactly as he truly is, not disguised, not hidden, complete. The moment hangs suspended between heaven and earth. Some ancient storytellers say Zeus begged her to choose another gift. Others believe tears filled his immortal eyes. For perhaps the first time, the ruler of Olympus faced an enemy neither thunderbolts nor divine authority could overcome. His own promise. An oath once spoken could not be recalled. Slowly, reluctantly, Zeus allows his disguise to fade. The room begins to glow, not with ordinary light, with the radiance that created storm. Clouds gather instantly above the palace. Lightning dances silently through them. The air itself becomes charged until every breath tastes like rain and fire together. Marble columns tremble. Curtains lift without wind. The warmth becomes unbearable. No mortal body was ever meant to stand before an unveiled god. Semele gazes upon the true majesty of Zeus for only an instant. It is enough. Brilliance floods the chamber. Flames leap across cedar beams. Thunder shakes every corner of Thebes. Then everything becomes still. When the light finally fades, only drifting smoke remains. The tragedy echoes across both heaven and earth. Semele is gone. Her mortal life ends not through cruelty, but through a truth too magnificent to survive. Yet the story refuses to end there. For within the burning chamber, Zeus hears another sound, a heartbeat, tiny, fragile, still alive. Without hesitation, he reaches into the sacred fire and lifts the unborn child from the ruins. Ancient artists often portrayed this moment with remarkable tenderness. The mighty ruler of Olympus, feared by gods and mortals alike, cradles a life small enough to rest within both hands. The child cannot survive alone. Not yet. So Zeus performs one of the strangest acts in all Greek mythology. He opens his own thigh and carefully places the unborn infant within it, protecting him until the proper time of birth arrives. To modern ears, the image may seem unusual, even symbolic. Some researchers believe it represents divine rebirth rather than literal anatomy. Others argue it preserves echoes of far older religious traditions, whose meanings have been partially lost. No single interpretation has ever fully replaced the mystery. What mattered to the Greeks was simpler. The child was born twice, once from his mother, once from his father. No other Olympian entered existence in quite the same way. You imagine Zeus walking alone across Olympus afterward. The palace is silent. Even the gods hesitate to speak. He carries within himself not only an unborn son, but also the memory of the woman he could not save. Perhaps this is why Dionysus would forever understand both joy and grief. His first moments of existence were shaped equally by love and loss. Before he ever opened his eyes, he had already survived death. Before he ever spoke a word, he had already become living proof that endings sometimes conceal astonishing beginnings. Far below, the vineyards continue growing beneath the summer sun. Their fruit ripens slowly, patiently, just as the child hidden within Zeus prepares for another birth. No one in Greece yet realizes that the god, who will one day teach humanity about transformation, has himself become the greatest symbol of transformation imaginable. But somewhere beyond mortal sight, another warning begins to stir. Hera's anger has not faded. It has only changed direction. And when the twice-born child finally enters the world, her gaze will already be searching for him. The winds of Olympus move differently after Semile's death. They no longer carry only the bright voices of immortal celebration. If you listen carefully, you can almost hear another note beneath them. It is quieter, heavier, like the distant echo of rain lingering after a storm has already passed. Zeus continues to rule the heavens with the same commanding presence. Yet somewhere beneath that unshakable authority rests the memory of a promise that cost an innocent life. Within him, another life continues to grow. The child waits patiently in a place no mortal could ever imagine. Ancient storytellers often linger over this unusual pause before Dionysus's second birth. Time itself seems to slow. Seasons change across Greece. Snow briefly dusts the highest mountain peaks before melting into rushing streams. Shepherds lead their flocks toward fresh spring meadows. Fishermen repair worn nets beside quiet harbors where gulls circle above gentle waves. The world continues its familiar rhythm, yet destiny remains hidden. Eventually, the waiting comes to an end, without the pain or danger that accompanied Semile's final moments. Zeus carefully brings the child into the light. The infant opens his eyes beneath the endless sky, and for a brief moment, the king of the gods simply watches him in silence. No thunder shakes Olympus, no blazing miracle fills the heavens, only a father holding his son. It is one of the gentlest scenes preserved in Greek mythology. Some surviving temple traditions even suggest that this quiet birth carried greater meaning than any dramatic display of divine power. Strength, they implied, sometimes revealed itself most clearly through protection rather than conquest. The child appears healthy, peaceful, almost impossibly calm. Dark curls frame his small face, while curious eyes seem unusually attentive for one so newly born. Ancient artists rarely portrayed him as helpless, even as an infant. Dionysus often carries an expression suggesting that some deep mystery already lives within him. Perhaps it does, for although he has escaped death once, danger has not disappeared. Far from the chamber where Zeus welcomes his son, Hera learns the child has survived. Her anger hardens into determination. She cannot undo what has already happened, but she can still shape what happens next. You follow Zeus as he walks through the shining halls of Olympus. Marble columns reflect warm morning light. Golden braziers burn with smokeless fire. Divine servants move quietly between magnificent chambers, careful not to disturb the sleeping infant cradled against Zeus's shoulder. The king of the gods knows something important. No place upon Olympus is truly safe, not while Hera watches, not while resentment still burns within her heart. He must hide the child. The decision carries its own sorrow. Zeus has rescued his son only to send him away almost immediately. Yet love often demands painful choices. Better a hidden childhood than a brief one. His search leads beyond the familiar courts of Olympus to the gentle valleys surrounding Mount Nysa. The exact location of Nysa remains one of mythology's oldest mysteries. Ancient writers placed it in many different lands. Some believed it lay deep within Thrace. Others pointed toward Asia Minor, Libya, or even distant India. Historians continue to debate whether Nysa represented a real mountain or an imagined sacred landscape existing somewhere beyond ordinary maps. Perhaps that uncertainty is fitting. A child destined to cross boundaries begins life in a place that belongs everywhere and nowhere at once. You arrive beneath towering cliffs where waterfalls descend into emerald pools. Ferns cover smooth stones cooled by endless spray. Tall cypress trees cast shifting shadows across soft moss, while wildflowers bloom beneath branches untouched by cities or kings. The air smells wonderfully alive. Wet earth, fresh pine, sweet blossoms, mountain water. Birdsong echoes gently through hidden valleys where every sound seems softened by distance. Here live the nymphs. Unlike the great Olympian gods, these graceful spirits belong to particular rivers, forests, caves, and springs. Their lives are deeply connected to the landscapes they protect. They understand patience because they watch trees grow for centuries. They understand silence because mountain streams speak without ever raising their voices. Zeus entrusts the infant to their care. Among them are nurturing figures remembered by different names across surviving traditions. Some stories speak of the Hyades, gentle sisters associated with nourishing rains. Others describe mountain nymphs whose individual names have faded through time. The details vary, but the purpose remains unchanged. The child will be loved. The nymphs receive him with quiet reverence. One wraps him carefully in soft wool woven from mountain sheep. Another gathers fresh goat's milk. A third decorates his resting place with ivy leaves, whose green color never seems to fade, even through winter, without realizing it. They surround him with symbols that will follow him throughout eternity. Every morning the valley awakens gently. Mist rises from hidden springs before sunlight reaches the forest floor. Bees drift among flowers, heavy with nectar. Young deer approach the streams without fear. Tiny lizards warm themselves upon flat stones, while butterflies wander lazily between blossoms. Dionysus grows surrounded by peace. He learns the language of flowing water before hearing the noise of cities. He watches vines climb ancient trees. He follows foxes through quiet woodland paths. He laughs whenever birds gather above his head. The nymphs soon notice something unusual. Plants seem healthier wherever the child spends his time. Flowers bloom slightly earlier. Fruit ripens more richly. Even neglected vines begin producing clusters of remarkable sweetness. Some researchers believe these traditions reflect very ancient agricultural beliefs, connecting divine fertility with seasonal renewal. Another interpretation survives in local cult traditions, where Dionysus is less a distant god than the living spirit of nature's endless cycle. Whatever ancient people believed, one truth remains constant. Life seems eager to welcome him, yet danger never disappears completely. High above the valley, Hera continues searching, unable to discover the child's exact hiding place. She turns instead toward another servant. His name is Lycurgus, a proud king, strong in battle, certain of his own judgment. Dreams begin troubling his sleep. Night after night, he sees vineyards covering his kingdom until no fields remain for grain. Wild women dance through forests, carrying blazing torches. Laughter echoes across empty hillsides, while crowned ivy slowly climbs the walls of his palace. He wakes uneasy. Ancient Greeks often viewed recurring dreams as warnings rather than simple imagination, whether sent by gods or born from hidden fears. Such visions deserved careful attention. Lycurgus chooses fear. Instead of asking what the dreams might mean, he prepares himself to resist whatever approaches. Far away, Dionysus remains unaware. He is still only a child. You watch him chase bright butterflies through flowering meadows, while sunlight sparkles across nearby streams. His laughter carries effortlessly through the valley, causing birds to answer with cheerful songs. Sometimes he sits quietly beside the oldest nymph, listening as she tells stories older than Olympus itself. She speaks of chaos, of Gaia, of stars born from darkness, of rivers remembering every generation that drinks from them. Most of all, she teaches patience. The vine never hurries. She tells him one evening while they watch twilight settle across the mountains. It climbs because climbing is its nature. The child listens carefully. Perhaps he understands, perhaps not yet. Children often carry wisdom long before they recognize it. One afternoon, another strange sign appears. A young leopard wanders into the valley. Instead of hunting, the beautiful animal walks directly toward Dionysus before lying peacefully beside him. Soon, Birds settle upon nearby branches. Deer emerge from the forest. Even cautious wolves remain hidden among distant trees without showing fear or hunger. For a single quiet hour, every creature shares the same peaceful clearing. Later generations would remember wild animals as companions of Dionysus. Perhaps this is where those memories began, or perhaps storytellers wished to show that nature itself recognized him before civilization ever could. No one can know with certainty. The mystery remains. Years pass gently beneath the shelter of Mount Nysa. The frightened infant slowly becomes a curious boy. His questions grow deeper. His laughter grows louder. His eyes begin searching beyond the valley's familiar ridges. He wonders what lies beyond the mountains. He wonders why Zeus visits only occasionally. Most of all, he wonders why the nymphs sometimes grow quiet whenever Hera's name is spoken. Children eventually notice the silences adults hope to hide. One evening, as the first stars appear above the darkening peaks, Dionysus asks a simple question. Why must I remain hidden? The oldest nymph looks toward the western horizon before answering. Because some journeys cannot begin until the traveler is ready. It is a gentle reply. Not the complete truth, but perhaps the only truth a child needs. For beyond those peaceful mountains, the world is already changing. Kings dream uneasy dreams, old prophecies awaken, and somewhere in the gathering darkness, Hera's search draws a little closer with every passing season. The sanctuary of childhood cannot last forever. Soon, the hidden child will have to meet the world that has been waiting for him. Morning arrives slowly upon Mount Nysa. The first rays of sunlight slip between towering pines before touching the valley below, where thin ribbons of mist still drift above quiet streams. Tiny droplets cling to every blade of grass, sparkling like scattered stars that forgot to return to the heavens. The air feels cool against your skin, carrying the mingled scents of cedar, wild mint, damp stone, and flowering vines that have climbed ever higher since the strange child first came to this hidden sanctuary. Years have passed, almost unnoticed. The infant once cradled in Zeus's hands has become a young boy whose curiosity seems as endless as the mountains surrounding him. He rises before dawn most mornings, not because anyone tells him to, because the world itself invites him. You follow him along familiar woodland paths where every tree seems to recognize his footsteps. Birds no longer scatter as he approaches. Rabbits pause only briefly before continuing to nibble clover beneath the morning light. Even the mountain goats grazing among distant cliffs watch him without alarm. The valley has accepted him completely. Sometimes it almost feels as though the land itself is raising him alongside the nymphs. The oldest among them notices these quiet changes with growing wonder. She has watched countless children pass through the seasons. Most learn to gather fruit, climb rocks, or follow streams home before sunset. Dionysus learns those things as well. But he also learns something else. He listens, not merely to voices, to everything. He listens to the wind moving through olive leaves. He listens to rain striking broad fig leaves before reaching the earth. He listens to bees humming around lavender blossoms. Even silence seems to speak to him. One afternoon, he kneels beside a tiny spring flowing from beneath a limestone cliff. The water is perfectly clear. Sunlight dances across its surface, making smooth pebbles shimmer beneath the current. He places one hand into the cool water, closing his eyes, remaining completely still. When he finally speaks, his words surprise the nearby nymphs. The spring is happy today. They exchange uncertain glances. Children often imagine impossible things. Yet as they look more closely, they notice something unusual. The water flows stronger than yesterday. Fresh green shoots have appeared around its edge overnight. White flowers that should not bloom until next month have already opened. Perhaps it is coincidence, perhaps not. Ancient storytellers loved these quiet moments because they suggested that Dionysus did not command nature through force. Nature responded willingly. Surviving religious traditions sometimes describe him less as a ruler over plants than as the living rhythm hidden inside every growing thing. Some researchers believe this explains why his myths rarely separate him from forests, vines, rivers, and mountains. He does not simply visit nature. He belongs to it. As the seasons continue their gentle procession, another gift slowly reveals itself. It begins with wild grapes. The valleys surrounding Mount Nisa are filled with vines that twist naturally through oak trees and rocky hillsides. Most produce small fruit, sweet enough to eat yet easily forgotten among the countless berries growing throughout the forest. Dionysus sees something others overlook. He begins comparing one vine with another. Some receive more sunlight. Others cling to cooler cliffs. Some grapes taste richer after autumn rain. Others become sweeter when gathered later in the season. The observations seem ordinary, until they continue, day after day, month after month. He remembers every difference. The nymphs smile as they watch him carry woven baskets overflowing with grapes collected from distant slopes. "What do you hope to find?" one asks gently. He thinks for a long moment. "I do not know." Then he smiles. "But the vines do." The answer sounds simple, yet it lingers. Perhaps wisdom sometimes arrives before explanation. One evening, while crimson light settles across the western mountains, Dionysus accidentally leaves a basket of crushed grapes inside a shaded cave. Days pass before he remembers. When he finally returns, expecting spoiled fruit, a different scent greets him. Warm, sweet, rich, unlike anything he has smelled before. The juice has changed. Tiny bubbles rise slowly through the dark liquid. Curious, he dips a finger into the clay bowl. The taste surprises him. Not because it resembles grapes, because it has become something entirely new. Ancient myths rarely agree about whether Dionysus truly invented wine or simply revealed its secret to humanity. Archaeological discoveries show that winemaking existed long before the classical Greek world fully developed. Yet mythology concerns itself less with technical invention than with meaning. Dionysus becomes the one who understands what wine truly represents. Transformation. One thing becoming another without losing its deepest nature. A grape disappears. Wine appears. Nothing is destroyed. Everything changes. The young god cannot yet explain these thoughts. He only senses them. The discovery fills him with quiet excitement rather than triumph. He shares the strange drink carefully with the oldest nymph. She tastes only a little, then laughs. Not loudly, not wildly. Simply with the relaxed joy of someone remembering a forgotten song. The sound surprises them both. Soon the other nymphs gather. Each drinks sparingly. Conversation becomes warmer. Stories flow more freely. Old worries seem lighter. The valley itself feels somehow brighter beneath the evening stars. Yet, when one younger spirit drinks far too much, she stumbles carelessly into the stream before bursting into tears over a problem no one else understands. The happiness fades. Concern replaces laughter. Dionysus kneels beside her, helping her back onto dry ground. Only then does he understand. Every blessing carries responsibility. That lesson settles deeply within him. Wine can open the heart. It can also cloud it. The choice belongs not to the drink alone, but to those who receive it. Many years later, this truth would remain at the center of his worship. Not simple celebration. Balance. Joy without forgetting wisdom. Freedom without abandoning kindness. The lesson comes early. It never leaves him. Soon afterward, another mystery unfolds. One night, Dionysus dreams of a woman whose face remains hidden behind flowing light. She stands beneath an enormous vine whose branches stretch across the entire sky. Every grape hanging there contains a tiny world. Some glow with laughter, others with sorrow. Some shine with memories yet to happen. The woman speaks only once. "You will teach them both." Then she disappears. He wakes before sunrise. The dream refuses to fade. Ancient Greeks often regarded dreams received before dawn as especially meaningful. Some temple traditions encouraged pilgrims to sleep within sacred sanctuaries, hoping divine visions would reveal guidance impossible to find during waking life. Who sent this dream? His mother. One of the Moirai. The mysterious fates. Gaia herself, or was it simply the quiet voice of destiny beginning to awaken inside him? No tradition gives a certain answer. The mystery remains beautifully open. As Dionysus grows older, Zeus visits more frequently. Their meetings never resemble grand royal audiences. Instead, father and son wander mountain trails together. Sometimes they speak, sometimes they simply walk. One afternoon, Zeus pauses beside an ancient cedar overlooking the entire valley. "You have grown well here." Dionysus nods. "I have." After a silence, he asks the question that has waited inside him for years. "Will I always remain hidden?" Zeus studies the distant horizon before answering. "No." "When must I leave?" "When the world needs you more than this valley does." The words carry unexpected sadness, for both of them know that such a day will come. No sanctuary lasts forever. As summer deepens, strangers begin appearing along distant mountain paths. Hunters, travelers, shepherds. They never quite reach the hidden valley, yet they come closer than before. News spreads quietly across Greece of unusual harvests in nearby regions. Vines produce sweeter fruit, fields recover after drought. Goats bear healthy young even during difficult seasons. Some call it luck. Others whisper about an unknown spirit blessing the mountains. Hera hears those whispers too. Although she still cannot discover the child's exact refuge, she senses that something important continues growing beyond her reach. Her patience begins wearing thin. Far below Olympus, King Lycurgus wakes once again from troubled dreams. This time he sees not only vines, he sees a young man, crowned with ivy, walking calmly toward his kingdom, while countless ordinary people follow with smiling faces and lighted torches. The king reaches for his sword. But the blade has become a flowering branch. He wakes trembling. The warning grows clearer. Destiny moves closer. Back upon Mount Nysa, the oldest nymph watches Dionysus standing alone beneath the evening sky. He no longer resembles the child she first carried through flowering meadows. His shoulders have broadened. His gaze reaches beyond distant mountains. Wonder still fills his heart. But now another feeling has joined it. Longing. The valley has taught him everything it can. Beyond the peaks lies suffering he has never witnessed. Cities, kings, wars, loneliness, celebration, grief, love. The countless contradictions that shape every human life. Somewhere within them waits the purpose foretold before he was ever born. The wind stirs the ivy around his feet. A shooting star crosses the darkening heavens. Neither he nor the nymphs speak, they simply watch. For sometimes even silence understands that childhood has quietly reached its final evening. And beyond the mountains, the world has already begun preparing for the arrival of the hidden god who will soon walk among mortals. The morning you leave Mount Nysa arrives without ceremony. No trumpets sound across the valleys. No great prophecy echoes from the heavens. Instead, the world awakens exactly as it always has. Mist drifts above the streams. Birds greet the sunrise from the branches of old cypress trees. Dew gathers on ivy leaves before slowly surrendering to the warmth of the growing day. Everything appears wonderfully ordinary, yet you sense that nothing will ever be quite the same again. Dionysus stands at the edge of the valley, where he has spent nearly all his life. Behind him rests every memory of childhood. Ahead lies a world he knows only through stories. The oldest nymph approaches carrying a small woven satchel. Inside are simple gifts, a loaf of coarse barley bread, a skin filled with clear spring water, a wreath of evergreen ivy. She gently places the wreath upon his head. "Do not wear it because you are a god," she says softly. "Wear it because you remember where you learned to grow." He bows his head. There are no grand farewells, only quiet embraces. One by one, the nymphs place their hands upon his shoulders, smiling through eyes bright with unshed tears. They have watched him stumble through his first steps, laugh beneath summer rain, discover the mystery of the vine, and ask questions no child should have been wise enough to ask. Now they must let him go. Every parent eventually faces that moment, even those who are not truly parents. You walk beside Dionysus as he descends the winding mountain paths. The air changes gradually. The cool fragrance of pine gives way to the scent of cultivated fields. Wild streams become irrigation channels carefully shaped by human hands. Shepherds' songs replace the endless chorus of mountain birds. For the first time in many years, the hidden god enters the ordinary world. No one recognizes him. He wears the clothes of a wandering traveler. His sandals are dusty. His cloak bears the faded marks of long roads. If someone passes him upon the path, they see only a pleasant young man with curious eyes and an easy smile. Perhaps that is exactly how he wishes it. Unlike many Olympians, Dionysus has little interest in announcing himself. He wants to understand people before asking them to understand him. That choice reveals something important about the god he is becoming. Power does not always seek recognition. Sometimes it seeks conversation. The first village welcomes him with cautious hospitality. Whitewashed homes cluster around a small square shaded by olive trees. Chickens wander freely between stone wells. Children laugh while chasing a rag ball through narrow streets. Somewhere nearby, Fresh bread bakes inside a clay oven, filling the air with warmth and grain. The village elder notices the unfamiliar traveler. "You have walked far." "I have." "You look tired." "A little." "Then eat first." Nothing more is asked. No payment is demanded. Such hospitality was sacred in ancient Greece. Every stranger might be protected by Zeus himself, who watched carefully over the treatment of guests. Many myths remind listeners that kindness shown to unknown travelers often became kindness offered directly to the gods. Today, the villagers unknowingly welcome one. As evening settles across the rooftops, Dionysus joins several families beneath a large fig tree. Simple food passes from hand to hand. Barley bread, goat cheese, olives, fresh figs, water drawn that morning from the village spring. Conversation flows gently. A farmer speaks of drought. A fisherman worries about poor catches along the nearby coast. A young mother quietly wonders whether her sick child will survive another winter. No one speaks dramatically. These are simply the ordinary burdens carried by ordinary lives. Dionysus listens far more than he speaks. That surprises you. You expected a god to offer immediate answers. Instead, he gathers stories. He notices tired hands hardened by years of labor. He watches how parents quietly eat less so their children may eat more. He observes neighbors sharing tools because no family owns enough alone. The hidden valley taught him about nature. These villages begin teaching him about humanity. Late that night, he walks alone beyond the houses. The stars shine brilliantly above open fields where crickets sing among tall grasses. He remembers the dream of the woman beneath the endless vine. You will teach them both. Both what? Joy and sorrow, celebration and restraint. Life and death, he still does not know. Perhaps the answer cannot be learned in solitude. Morning brings another lesson. Two brothers argue bitterly beside a vineyard. The vines have suffered from disease. Only a handful of healthy grapes remain. Each brother believes the surviving harvest belongs to him. Anger rises quickly. Voices grow louder. Neighbors gather uneasily. No one knows how to settle the dispute. Dionysus quietly walks into the vineyard. Without speaking, he kneels beside one of the struggling vines. Its leaves droop beneath the summer sun. The soil has become dry and compacted. He loosens the earth gently with his hands before guiding water from a nearby channel toward the roots. Then he stands. Wait. The brothers exchange confused glances. Nothing seems to happen. Until several moments later, the wilted leaves slowly lift toward the sunlight. Not suddenly, not miraculously, simply as though the vine has remembered how to breathe. The watching villagers fall silent. One elderly woman whispers a prayer. Another makes the sign used to honor forgotten rural spirits. The brothers forget their argument. Together they begin tending every neglected vine. Only afterward does Dionysus speak. The vineyard cannot choose between you. It only asks to be cared for. The words remain with the villagers long after the traveler departs. Some researchers believe stories like these preserve echoes of Dionysus before he became associated primarily with ecstatic festivals. Early traditions often emphasize agriculture, seasonal renewal, and the quiet wisdom learned from working the land. If so, the joyful god first revealed himself not through wild celebration, but through patient compassion. You continue traveling together. Days become weeks. Villages become towns. Harbor cities appear where blue waves strike stone piers lined with fishing boats rocking gently beneath afternoon breezes. Everywhere the pattern repeats. Dionysus watches, learns, listens. He notices how fishermen celebrate safe returns after dangerous storms. He notices mothers singing softly while grinding grain before sunrise. He notices old men smiling as grandchildren climb onto their knees beneath grape arbors. Even amid hardship, people search constantly for moments worth celebrating. Perhaps they simply lack permission. One afternoon he meets an old potter, shaping clay upon a spinning wheel. The craftsman's hands tremble with age. Several finished bowls collapse before the clay can dry. Frustration clouds his face. I was once the finest potter in this valley. The old man sighs. My hands remember, but they no longer obey. Dionysus studies the unfinished vessel. Then he smiles. Perhaps your hands have another lesson. Together they reshape the collapsed clay, not into elegant ceremonial cups, into simple drinking bowls strong enough for daily use. The old man laughs. They are imperfect. They are useful. Perhaps that is enough. Years later, he will tell his grandchildren about the mysterious traveler who transformed disappointment into quiet contentment. Not every miracle needs divine light. Sometimes perspective changes everything. As Dionysus journeys farther, rumors begin spreading. Some speak of a wandering healer, others describe a teacher. Some insist he must be a forgotten prince traveling in disguise. A few whisper something stranger. Perhaps he is a god. No one agrees. That uncertainty pleases him, for belief freely chosen always grows deeper than belief demanded. Yet beyond these peaceful encounters, darker currents begin moving. High upon Olympus, Hera hears increasing reports of unusual harvests, restored vineyards, and villages strangely transformed after receiving an unknown traveler. She suspects the truth, although she cannot yet prove it. Meanwhile, King Lycurgus receives another troubling dream. This time, the young traveler walks openly through crowded marketplaces. People do not kneel before him. They smile. They sing. They embrace one another as though forgotten burdens have suddenly become lighter. When the king orders his soldiers to seize the stranger, every spear transforms into flowering ivy. Lycurgus wakes in terror. Instead of reflecting upon the dream, he begins preparing for war against an enemy he has never met. Fear often creates the very future it hopes to prevent. Dionysus remains unaware. Tonight he rests beneath an ancient olive tree overlooking the sea. Moonlight stretches across gentle waves until sky and water seem almost joined. The scent of salt mingles with crushed thyme beneath your feet. Nearby, a shepherd shares his evening fire without asking the traveler's name. Together they eat roasted onions and fresh bread while distant bells echo from grazing sheep. Simple. Peaceful. Enough. The shepherd eventually asks a single question. Why do you wander? Dionysus gazes toward the dark horizon. Because I wish to know people. The shepherd nods thoughtfully. And when you know them? A long silence follows. Finally, Dionysus answers with quiet honesty. Then perhaps I will know myself. The waves continue breaking gently against the shore. Far beyond the horizon, destiny quietly rearranges itself once more. For the traveler who set out seeking ordinary people is slowly becoming extraordinary in their memories. And before long, one proud king will decide that such memories are far too dangerous to be allowed. The road carries you deeper into the lowlands, where the mountains soften into broad valleys, warmed by long hours of sunlight. Here, vineyards cling to gentle slopes above villages built from pale stone and sun-dried brick. Their leaves tremble beneath the afternoon breeze. Yet many of the vines remain poorly tended, twisted together without order. Their fruit small and uneven. Dionysus studies them carefully. He has seen wild vines flourish in the hidden valleys of Nysa. He has tasted grapes ripened by different soils and watched their juice change inside dark caves. Yet until now, his knowledge has belonged mostly to himself. That is about to change. You arrive in a village suffering through the final weeks of a harsh summer. Dust hangs above the road. Wells have fallen low. The smell of dry grass drifts between the houses, while tired farmers gather beneath a weathered plane tree to discuss the coming harvest. Their voices remain calm, but worry moves beneath every word. If the grain fails, winter will be difficult. If the grapes fail, several families will lose the only trade they know. Dionysus listens as he always does. Then he asks to see the vineyards. The farmers exchange uncertain glances. To them, he still appears to be only a young traveler with ivy leaves woven around his staff. Yet something in his manner encourages trust. Perhaps it is his patience. Perhaps it is the way he looks at struggling plants as though they are wounded creatures rather than failed crops. They lead him uphill. The heat presses against your skin. Cicadas sing loudly from olive trees. Every step releases the scent of dust, crushed thyme, and warm stone. At the edge of the largest vineyard, Dionysus pauses. He touches the dry soil. He studies the direction of the sun. He examines the distance between the plants. Then he begins to work. He shows the villagers how to separate tangled vines so light can reach their leaves. He teaches them to trim weak branches, allowing the strongest growth to carry the fruit. He guides shallow channels across the hillside, so precious water can move slowly between the roots instead of vanishing into the dust. Nothing happens quickly. Days pass. The work is difficult. Hands blister. Backs ache. Some villagers begin doubting the stranger. An older farmer named Thestor watches the sky each evening, hoping for rain that never comes. "You speak as though the vine understands sacrifice," he tells Dionysus. "It does," Dionysus replies. "What must it sacrifice? What it cannot carry." The answer seems harsh. Yet Thestor looks again at the pruned branches lying across the earth. Perhaps growth does not always mean keeping everything. Sometimes survival requires release. This lesson belongs to more than vineyards. Dionysus senses that truth, though he does not yet fully understand how often it will return throughout his life. At last, the first change appears. New leaves emerge from the strongest branches. Small grapes swell beneath them. Their skins darken slowly from green to deep purple as the season begins turning toward autumn. The villagers watch with growing wonder. By harvest time, the clusters hang heavy enough to bend the vines. Children carry baskets between the rows, while adults sing simple working songs beneath the soft morning sun. The air fills with the sweet smell of ripe fruit. Bees drift lazily around broken grapes, and purple juice stains bare feet as the harvest is gathered. Dionysus does not claim the success for himself. He joins the labor. He lifts baskets. He repairs cracked jars. He laughs when children throw grapeskins at one another. For the first time since leaving Nysa, he feels something close to belonging, not hidden, not worshipped, needed. That feeling awakens a deeper desire within him. He does not merely want mortals to survive. He wants them to experience moments when survival becomes celebration, when the harvest ends. Dionysus gathers the villagers inside a cool stone building near the hillside. Large clay jars line the walls. Torches cast gentle light across their rounded surfaces. He shows them how to crush the grapes, how to collect the juice, how to seal it away from harsh sunlight. Most importantly, he teaches them to wait. Fermentation cannot be commanded. It must unfold in darkness. The villagers struggle with this idea. They are accustomed to work whose results can be seen immediately. Grain becomes flour beneath the stone. Wood becomes fire beneath a spark. But here, the most important change occurs inside sealed vessels, where no human eye can follow it. Each day, Thestor places his hand against one of the jars. He hears faint movement within, tiny bubbles, soft pressure, a hidden process. "It sounds alive," he whispers. Dionysus smiles. Perhaps it is. Weeks later, the jars are opened. The scent rises first, rich fruit, earth, warm sweetness, something sharper beneath it. The villagers gather in silence as Dionysus fills a shallow cup and offers it to Thestor. The old farmer drinks cautiously. His expression changes, not from drunkenness, from recognition. The grapes are gone, yet somehow their memory remains. Sunlight, rain, soil, labor, time, all of it survives inside the wine. Thestor passes the cup. Others drink. Conversation begins softly, then becomes warmer. Old disagreements lose their sharp edges. Neighbors remember stories from childhood. A widow who has rarely smiled since her husband's death laughs when someone recalls his terrible singing voice. For one evening, hardship loosens its grip. This is the gift Dionysus hoped to offer. Not forgetfulness, relief, a pause in which tired hearts can open again. Yet the night also reveals a warning. One young man named Melanthios drinks too quickly. The warmth becomes recklessness. He boasts loudly, insults his companions, and overturns a jar when Thestor tries to stop him. Laughter disappears. Anger fills the room. Dionysus steps between them. His voice remains quiet. "That is enough." Melanthios stares at him defiantly. "You gave it to us. I showed you the door. You chose how far to walk through it." The words settle heavily across the room. Melanthios looks down at the spilled wine spreading across the stone floor like dark blood. Shame replaces pride. This moment shapes Dionysus deeply. Until now, he has believed that knowledge itself brings improvement. Teach people wisely, and they will use the gift wisely. But humanity is not so simple. Neither is divine power. Wine reveals what already lives within the drinker. Kindness may become generosity. Grief may become tears. Pride may become cruelty. Dionysus begins to understand that he cannot control every consequence of what he gives. That realization frightens him. It is the first true failure of his wandering life. No one dies. No kingdom falls. Yet innocence disappears. He can no longer imagine his gift as purely benevolent. Every blessing carries a shadow. Ancient worship would preserve this understanding for centuries. Wine was poured for gods, shared among friends, offered to the dead, and carefully mixed with water during formal gatherings. To drink without restraint was not merely foolish. It meant abandoning the balance that made civilization possible. Some researchers believe this tension explains why Dionysian worship could appear both joyful and unsettling. Dionysus offered release from ordinary limits, but never promised that release would be safe. The next morning, the village wakes beneath a pale sky. The air feels cooler. Autumn has begun. Melanthios helps clean the stone floor without being asked. Festor repairs the broken jar. No one speaks much about the previous night. Dionysus walks alone among the vines. Leaves have started turning gold. He touches one gently and remembers the nymph's teaching. The vine never hurries. Now he sees another lesson. The vine must be trained. Without guidance, it tangles itself around anything nearby. Without restraint, its fruit remains poor. Freedom and discipline are not enemies. They depend upon one another. As evening approaches, a divine sign appears above the vineyard. A flock of black birds circles 3 times before flying north against the wind. The villagers consider it unusual. Dionysus watches them until they vanish beyond the hills. He feels a warning within the pattern. Perhaps Zeus has sent it. Perhaps the earth itself is speaking. Far away, reports of the miraculous harvest have already reached neighboring towns. Traders prepare to carry the new wine across mountain roads and sea routes, with every cup poured. Dionysus's name will travel farther. So will misunderstanding. Some will remember the warmth. Others will seek only excess. Kings will begin hearing of celebrations they cannot control. Priests will wonder whether this wandering stranger challenges older gods, and somewhere beyond the northern hills. Lycurgus learns that entire villages now gather around a young man crowned in ivy. The frightened king gives his soldiers a single order: find him. The vine has changed one village. Soon, it will change the world. But before that transformation can spread, Dionysus must discover whether humanity is ready for the freedom he has placed within its hands. Autumn settles gently across Greece. The vineyards glow with shades of amber and crimson beneath a clear blue sky. Olive groves shimmer silver whenever the wind passes through their branches. In the villages you have visited, clay jars filled with newly made wine rest inside cool storerooms, waiting for winter feasts and sacred ceremonies. The gift has begun its journey, not carried by armies, not proclaimed by heralds, passed quietly from neighbor to neighbor. One traveler shares a cup with another beside a roadside fire. A merchant carries a skin of wine aboard a trading vessel crossing the Aegean. Pilgrims offer a few drops upon forgotten shrines before continuing toward distant temples. Stories travel with every cup. They speak of a young wanderer crowned with ivy, a man whose laughter eases sorrow, a stranger who understands vines better than anyone alive. Some whisper something more daring, perhaps he is a god. You walk beside Dionysus as he follows an old coastal road. The sea stretches endlessly to your left, its surface flashing beneath the afternoon sun. Fishing boats drift lazily beyond the harbor, while seabirds circle overhead, their cries mingling with the steady rhythm of waves striking the rocks below. He smiles as he watches ordinary life unfold. Children race through the marketplace carrying baskets too large for their arms. An elderly musician plays a weathered lyre beneath a fig tree. Women spread freshly washed linen across stone walls to dry in the warm breeze. These small moments delight him more than grand temples ever could. He sees something sacred inside ordinary happiness. Yet not everyone welcomes what follows in his footsteps. Power often grows uneasy when joy begins gathering people together. Far inland lies the kingdom of Lycurgus. Unlike the peaceful villages Dionysus has visited, Lycurgus rules through strict order. His roads are well guarded. His fields are carefully measured. Every festival follows ancient customs approved by the king himself. Nothing unexpected is encouraged. Nothing unfamiliar is trusted. For many years, his kingdom has known stability. To Lycurgus, stability is the highest form of wisdom. Then the rumors arrive. At first, they seem harmless. Travelers speak of villagers singing later into the evening than before. Harvest festivals lasting several days. Young people dancing beneath torchlight among newly harvested vines. Families laughing together after difficult seasons. The reports continue. Soon, merchants describe entire communities gathering around the mysterious stranger who teaches both vineyards and celebration. Lycurgus listens without smiling. His advisors disagree among themselves. One suggests inviting the traveler to court. Another recommends ignoring him entirely. A third quietly warns that movements built upon shared emotion often become stronger than those built upon fear. The king dismisses them all. Order built this kingdom. It will not be undone by songs. That night another dream visits him. He stands alone inside his palace. Every doorway has become covered with climbing ivy. He orders servants to tear it away. The vines return before his eyes. He draws his sword. The polished bronze begins sprouting green leaves until it resembles a living branch. Then he hears laughter, not mocking, joyful. It echoes through every chamber until he can no longer tell where it begins. He wakes before dawn. His heart races. The room smells strangely of crushed grapes. No fruit has entered the palace for days. Ancient dream interpreters would have urged caution. Repeated dreams often suggested that destiny had already begun moving beyond human control. But fear rarely listens to wisdom. Lycurgus calls his generals. The stranger enters no city under my rule. If he refuses, then he is no peaceful traveler, far away. Dionysus continues walking, unaware that another chapter of his life is beginning. You notice how his reputation changes before he does. When entering villages, people now recognize the ivy wreath resting upon his brow. Some greet him warmly, others bow. He gently asks them to rise. I have come to walk beside you, not above you. Those words spread almost as quickly as the wine itself. His followers remain few. A shepherd joins him for several days. A widow whose family vineyard has flourished decides to travel alongside the wandering teacher. Two brothers, once divided by inheritance, now work together after remembering his lesson about the vineyard that belonged to neither of them. Without intending it, Dionysus has begun gathering companions, not disciples, friends. This difference matters deeply. He never demands loyalty. He inspires it. One evening, the growing company reaches the border of Lycurgus's kingdom. Stone markers stand beside the road. Beyond them, soldiers wait. Their bronze armor glows beneath the setting sun. The captain steps forward. You are the traveler called Dionysus. I am. Our king commands that you leave. I have harmed no one. The order remains. Dionysus studies the weary faces beneath polished helmets. These men are not cruel, only obedient. He nods. I would speak with your king. The answer is no. A long silence follows. The sea breeze carries the scent of salt and distant pine forests across the road. Finally, Dionysus turns away. His companions stare at him in surprise. One whispers, we cannot simply leave. He smiles gently. A locked door teaches more than a broken one. Together they make camp beyond the border. As darkness settles across the hills, villagers secretly begin arriving. One family brings warm bread. Another carries olives and fresh cheese. An old woman offers figs preserved in honey. They apologize for the king. He fears change. Dionysus nods quietly. So do many people. No bitterness enters his voice, only understanding. He has begun recognizing something important. Those who reject him often do so because they believe they are protecting something precious. Their mistake is not love. It is fear. That realization softens his heart. The following morning, a child slips through the border guards and approaches the camp. She offers Dionysus a tiny clay cup painted with rough vines. My father made this. He says you should have it. The cup is uneven. Its handle leans slightly, yet Dionysus accepts it as though receiving a royal treasure. Sometimes the smallest gifts carry the greatest affection. Word of these secret visits soon reaches Lycurgus. His anger deepens. The traveler obeyed the royal command. Yet people continue seeking him. Control is beginning to slip beyond the king's grasp. He mistakes affection for rebellion. His advisors urge moderation. He has raised no army. He preaches no revolt. He only shares wine. Lycurgus strikes the council table with his fist. No, he teaches people to follow someone besides their king. In that moment, you begin seeing the true conflict. It has never been about wine, nor vineyards, nor festivals. It is about two very different visions of human life. Lycurgus believes order must always come before freedom. Dionysus believes joy gives order its meaning. Neither man yet fully understands the other. Ancient playwrights would later explore this tension again and again. Some researchers believe these myths preserve a lasting question inside Greek civilization itself. How much freedom can a society safely allow? At what point does order become oppression? No single answer ever satisfied everyone. Perhaps that is why the story continues speaking to each generation. Late that afternoon, another divine sign appears. Dark clouds gather suddenly above the border hills. Yet no rain falls. Instead, a single shaft of sunlight breaks through the clouds, illuminating the small clay cup resting beside Dionysus. Its painted vines seem almost alive. His companions fall silent. One young shepherd whispers, "The gods have spoken." Dionysus lifts the cup slowly. Perhaps, or perhaps they are asking us to listen more carefully. Even now he refuses certainty where mystery remains. That humility draws people toward him more powerfully than miracles ever could. But destiny has already crossed another threshold. High within his palace, Lycurgus gives a new command. No longer shall the traveler merely be turned away. If he returns, he will be seized. The king believes one arrest will restore peace. He cannot yet imagine that ideas carried in human hearts are harder to imprison than any wandering stranger. Beyond the border, the campfire burns softly beneath a sky crowded with stars. Dionysus watches the flames dance while the ivy wreath rests lightly upon his brow. He senses change approaching, not through prophecy, not through dreams, simply through the quiet intuition that often comes before life takes an unexpected turn. Tomorrow he will continue walking. Tomorrow another kingdom will open its gates. Tomorrow more people will hear his name. And somewhere ahead, the first great confrontation between compassion and fear waits patiently beneath the gathering autumn sky. The road is growing narrower. Destiny is drawing closer. The border of Lycurgus's kingdom disappears behind you as another dawn unfolds across Greece. A cool breeze carries the scent of pine from distant hills, while the first rays of sunlight spread across vineyards waiting quietly for the last days of harvest. The road ahead winds through forests, across shallow rivers, and toward villages that have never heard your footsteps before. Yet your arrival is no longer entirely unknown. The stories travel faster than you do. In one town, people speak of the stranger who healed neglected vineyards. In another, they remember the traveler who settled quarrels without raising his voice. Elsewhere, they tell of a mysterious young man whose laughter somehow made burdens feel lighter, even if only for an evening. Each storyteller remembers something different. Together, they begin creating a legend. Dionysus notices the change with quiet concern. He never intended to become famous. Recognition can be useful. It can also become dangerous. He has seen enough of Hera's anger to understand that attention often carries a hidden cost. Still, he continues walking. The road itself has become part of his education. One afternoon, you arrive beside a broad meadow where several shepherd families have gathered after bringing their flocks down from the mountains. Simple tents stand beneath ancient oaks. Children chase lambs through tall grass, while women prepare evening meals over small cooking fires. As always, Dionysus accepts their invitation to sit among them. No throne, no ceremony, only ordinary people sharing ordinary food. The smell of roasting onions mingles with fresh goat cheese and warm barley bread. Someone begins playing a reed flute. Another taps a gentle rhythm upon an overturned clay jar, without planning it. The evening slowly becomes a celebration. Not because anyone has won a battle, not because a king has declared a holiday, simply because they are alive together beneath the open sky. Dionysus watches the faces around the fire. The tired shepherd who barely smiled during supper now laughs freely. A widow who has spent months speaking little begins singing an old harvest song remembered from childhood. Two children fall asleep beside their grandmother, while music continues softly into the night. This is the kind of gathering he hoped might exist. Not an escape from life, a return to it. The oldest shepherd notices his thoughtful expression. "What troubles you?" "I wonder why people wait for permission to rejoice." The old man chuckles quietly. "Because life gives us many reasons not to." The answer lingers. Dionysus realizes something profound. Mortals do not struggle because they lack joy. They struggle because sorrow so often convinces them that joy has become undeserved. Perhaps his calling is not to create happiness. Perhaps it is to remind people that happiness has never entirely disappeared, as weeks become months. Similar gatherings begin appearing wherever he travels. At first, only a few villagers accompany him for short distances. Then more arrive. Some remain for days, others for entire seasons. A potter whose wife recently recovered from illness joins the company. A young shepherd curious about distant lands comes as well. An elderly woman who has outlived every member of her family says she has forgotten what loneliness feels like whenever the travelers gather around evening fires. No one is required to stay. Many leave after finding renewed hope. Others return months later. The growing company changes constantly, yet something binds them together. Not law, not wealth, shared experience. Among those who begin appearing most often are figures unlike ordinary villagers. You first notice them emerging from wooded hillsides at sunset. Their laughter echoes long before they become visible. Some carry simple drums fashioned from stretched animal skin. Others play reed pipes whose melodies seem to blend naturally with birdsong. Many wear ivy woven into their hair. Their clothing remains practical for long journeys, though decorated with leaves, flowers, and animal skins gathered from the forests they know so well. Ancient storytellers would later remember these companions as satyrs, yet the oldest traditions describe them in different ways. Sometimes they appear almost human. Sometimes they possess the ears, tails, or legs of woodland creatures. Perhaps these changing descriptions reveal something deeper than physical appearance. Satyrs represent the untamed parts of human nature: playfulness, curiosity, instinct, the freedom civilization often teaches people to hide. Dionysus welcomes them without hesitation. He does not ask them to become different. He simply invites them to walk beside everyone else. Remarkably, they do. You notice how the satyrs entertain restless children with impossible stories. They gather firewood before storms arrive. They dance enthusiastically after successful harvests. Their laughter is loud, sometimes far too loud. Yet beneath their joyful spirits lies genuine kindness. One evening, a young satyr accidentally frightens several village children by wearing a carved animal mask during a dance. The children cry. Music stops. The satyr immediately removes the mask and kneels before them. "I wish to make you laugh," instead of embarrassment. Dionysus places a reassuring hand upon his shoulder. "Then next time," he says gently, "begin with your own smile. The lesson is small, yet everyone remembers it. Joy cannot be forced. It must be welcomed." Soon another remarkable group begins gathering around Dionysus. Women from many different villages. Some are young, others have silver hair. Some arrive carrying infants, others come after years of quiet sorrow. Ancient Greece would remember them as the Maenads. Many later stories emphasize their ecstatic rituals, sometimes describing them with frightening intensity. Yet surviving religious traditions also preserve another image. Women who had spent much of life carrying endless responsibilities, finally discovering sacred moments where they could breathe freely, sing openly, and belong without judgment. Perhaps both traditions contain part of the truth. For every powerful gift contains the possibility of imbalance. Dionysus watches carefully as these gatherings grow. At sunset, they climb gentle hills carrying lighted torches. They sing hymns beneath the stars. They dance among cypress trees while drums echo softly through the valleys. You join them. The ground beneath your feet still holds the day's warmth. The scent of crushed rosemary rises whenever dancers pass. Above, countless stars shine with astonishing clarity, while distant wolves call from unseen mountains. No one dances to impress another. Each person moves differently, some slowly, some joyfully, some with tears quietly streaming down their faces. Dionysus understands, not every tear belongs to grief. Sometimes relief looks very similar. Late one evening, he walks away from the celebration toward a quiet cliff overlooking the sea. The music becomes distant. Only waves remain. Zeus appears beside him without warning. Father and son stand together beneath the moon. "You have gathered many followers. I did not ask them to follow. No, they chose." Silence settles between them. Finally, Zeus speaks again. "Hera is watching." Dionysus nods. "I know. You must be careful." He looks back toward the distant fires where laughter drifts gently across the hills. "If I become afraid of sharing joy, then I become someone else." Zeus cannot argue. Instead, he studies his son with quiet pride. The frightened child hidden upon Mount Nysa has become something entirely different. Not merely a god, a guide. Yet every guide eventually leads people into places where others refuse to follow. Far away, Hera watches from Olympus. The fires scattered across the Greek countryside resemble tiny stars upon the earth. Each one marks another gathering, another celebration, another reminder of the child she once tried to destroy. Her anger has become colder now, more patient. She no longer seeks only the boy. She studies those who believe in him. For she understands a difficult truth. A single traveler can be stopped. An idea shared by thousands cannot. At almost the same moment, King Lycurgus receives troubling reports from merchants returning through neighboring lands. The mysterious traveler no longer walks alone. Everywhere he goes, people gather, not to overthrow king, not to plunder cities, simply to celebrate life together. To Lycurgus, that distinction hardly matters. Crowds are difficult to control. Joy cannot be measured. Freedom refuses strict boundaries. His fear deepens. He begins preparing soldiers rather than ambassadors. Back beside the sea, Dionysus closes his eyes. The salt breeze cools his face. The waves continue their endless rhythm. He senses that the peaceful days of wandering are nearing their end. His growing family has given him belonging. It has also made him responsible for far more lives than his own. The gift of joy now carries the weight of leadership. And somewhere beyond the next range of mountains, the first great test of that responsibility is already waiting. The torches burn warmly through the night, but beyond their gentle light, shadows are quietly gathering. Winter loosens its grip with remarkable gentleness. The first almond blossoms appear along rocky hillsides, their pale petals drifting through the morning air like quiet snowfall in reverse. Streams swollen by melting mountain ice rush toward the valleys below, carrying the scent of fresh earth and young grass. Everywhere you look, Greece seems to awaken once more. So does Dionysus. The gatherings around him continue to grow, but something inside him has begun to change. For many months he has walked among villages, sharing wine, listening to ordinary lives, and teaching people how joy can become a sacred part of existence. Yet each evening, when the fires burn low and his companions fall asleep beneath blankets of woven wool, he gazes toward distant horizons. He feels a quiet restlessness, not dissatisfaction, calling. The world beyond Greece is waiting. One morning he announces his decision. We continue. A young shepherd looks surprised. We have already traveled so far. There are still people we have not met. The answer is simple, yet everyone understands. The road has never truly had an ending. It only reveals another turning. You leave the familiar valleys behind and begin climbing mountain passes where cold winds sweep across bare cliffs. Snow still clings to the highest peaks. Eagles circle silently overhead, while narrow trails wind between towering rocks, polished smooth by countless generations of travelers. The climb is difficult. Some companions struggle beneath heavy packs. Others lose confidence as storms gather unexpectedly around the higher ridges. Dionysus never rushes them. When someone grows weary, he stops. When another falls behind, he waits. Leadership, he has discovered, is measured by the slowest traveler rather than the fastest. The oldest among his companions notices this. You could reach the summit before sunset. I could. Why remain here? Dionysus smiles. A path walked alone teaches very little. The words spread quietly through the company. No one complains again that day. By evening you reach the highest pass. The world stretches endlessly before you. Far beyond the mountains lie broad plains unlike anything you have yet seen. Rivers shimmer beneath the fading sunlight. Distant forests cover rolling hills that disappear into blue haze at the horizon. Some ancient traditions claim Dionysus journeyed far beyond the Greek world, reaching lands that later generations identified with Thrace, Phrygia, Lydia, Egypt, and even India. Historians continue to debate how much of these stories reflects historical contact with distant cultures and how much belongs to symbolic mythology. Another interpretation survives, suggesting that each foreign journey represented the spread of new religious ideas rather than one man's physical travels. Perhaps both possibilities hold some truth. The stories endure because they describe more than geography. They describe transformation. As the company descends into unfamiliar lands, you immediately notice differences. The language sounds unfamiliar. The temples honor gods with different names. Clothing changes. Food carries spices, whose fragrances fill the marketplaces with aromas, unlike anything found in Greece. Instead of uncertainty, Dionysus feels wonder. Every culture, he realizes, has discovered its own way of asking the same questions. How should people live? How should they grieve? How should they celebrate? No nation owns those questions alone. In one bustling market town, musicians perform melodies played upon instruments he has never seen before. Their rhythms differ from the gentle songs of Greek shepherds. yet children begin dancing just the same. Dionysus joins them. At first, the local people laugh at the foreign traveler trying to imitate unfamiliar steps. Soon they laugh with him. By sunset, strangers who shared neither language nor customs are dancing together beneath hanging lanterns. Joy, it seems, requires remarkably little translation. That evening, an elderly merchant invites the travelers into his courtyard. Large clay lamps cast golden light upon carved wooden pillars. Bowls of figs, dates, roasted almonds, and honey cakes are placed upon woven mats. The scent of cinnamon and warm bread drifts through the cool evening air. The merchant studies Dionysus thoughtfully. You are not like other travelers. No, they arrive wishing to teach. You arrive wishing to listen. Dionysus lowers his gaze. I have found wisdom in many unexpected places. The merchant nods approvingly. So have I. For hours they exchange stories, not arguments, not debates. Stories. The merchant speaks of rivers that flood with astonishing regularity, bringing both destruction and life. Dionysus shares memories of hidden valleys where vines seem to grow without effort beneath the care of mountain nymphs. Neither man attempts to prove himself wiser. Each leaves the conversation richer than before. This becomes the pattern of the journey. Everywhere Dionysus travels, he gives something. Everywhere he travels, he receives something as well. His understanding deepens. So does his humility. Yet not every encounter unfolds peacefully. Several weeks later, the company enters a fortified city ruled by a governor who distrusts all outsiders. The gates remain open. The welcome does not. Soldiers escort the travelers directly to the governor's hall. The room smells faintly of cedar smoke and polished bronze. The governor studies Dionysus carefully. I hear people gather wherever you walk. They do. I hear they sing your name. Sometimes. Are you building an army? Dionysus smiles gently. If laughter is an army, then perhaps. The governor does not smile. He mistakes kindness for mockery. You will leave tomorrow. We intended to. You will not return. Dionysus bows respectfully. As you wish. Outside the hall, one companion whispers angrily, we have done nothing wrong. No. Then why accept his judgment? Dionysus watches a flock of birds settling upon the city walls. Because fear cannot be argued away. It must outgrow itself. The companion says nothing. Only much later will he understand. That night, despite the governor's suspicion, several townspeople secretly visit the travelers' camp. They bring fresh bread, water, blankets. One elderly woman apologizes quietly. Our ruler fears what he cannot measure. Dionysus thanks her without resentment. He has begun noticing a pattern repeating itself across many lands. Ordinary people often resemble one another far more than their rulers do. Parents worry about children. Farmers worry about rain. Fishermen worry about storms. Love, grief, hope. These things speak every language. As spring ripens into early summer, the company reaches a broad river unlike any Dionysus has ever seen. Its current moves slowly but powerfully beneath the afternoon sun. Tall reeds sway along the banks, while white birds rise gracefully into the air whenever boats disturb the water. That evening he dreams. He stands beside the river alone. Across the water waits Semele. She appears exactly as she might have looked before the flames consumed her mortal life. She smiles, yet she does not cross. Instead, she points toward the opposite shore. When Dionysus looks again, she has vanished. He wakes before dawn. The dream leaves him strangely peaceful. Ancient temple traditions often regarded dreams of departed loved ones as moments when the boundary between worlds briefly became transparent. Some believed the dead offered guidance. Others thought such visions reflected the dreamer's own heart searching for direction. Dionysus never claims certainty, but the dream strengthens his resolve. He cannot remain forever a wandering teacher. One day he must face the deeper wounds left within his own family. His mother still waits beyond the borders of life itself. The thought lingers quietly. Not yet, but someday. The journey continues through lands where towering cedars replace olive groves, where broad rivers replace narrow mountain streams, and where unfamiliar constellations seem to rise above the eastern horizon. Every new place changes him slightly. The frightened child hidden from Hera has become a traveler welcomed by strangers. The lonely wanderer has become the center of a growing community. The young god who once believed every gift brought happiness now understands that every gift also demands wisdom. Each lesson prepares him for what lies ahead. Far away, word of his travels reaches Olympus. Zeus listens with quiet pride. Athena watches thoughtfully. Hermes smiles, perhaps appreciating another restless traveler upon the roads of the world. Only Hera remains silent. Her silence has become more dangerous than anger. For while Dionysus gathers friends across distant lands, she patiently waits for the moment when one proud ruler will finally refuse to step aside. That moment is approaching, and when it comes, Dionysus will discover whether compassion alone can withstand the violence born from fear. The river behind you continues flowing toward the sea. The road before you disappears into another distant horizon. Beyond it waits not another peaceful village, but the first great trial that will test everything the wandering god has learned. The sea changes color as evening approaches. All afternoon it has shone bright blue beneath the summer sun, but now deeper shades gather across its surface. Violet settles near the horizon. Silver light begins trembling upon the waves. Warm wind moves through coastal grasses, carrying the scent of salt, wild fennel, and sun-heated stone. You stand beside Dionysus upon the deck of a small vessel. Behind you lie foreign roads, mountain passes, and cities where strangers welcomed or feared his name. Ahead waits another island, dark against the glowing sky. Naxos. The sailors speak little as they guide the vessel toward shore. They have heard stories about the island. Some say its vineyards grow richer than anywhere else in the Aegean. Others whisper that ancient powers sleep beneath its hills. One sailor points toward a lonely beach. There is someone there. At first you see only pale sand beneath the fading light. Then a figure moves. A woman sits beside the water, her clothing torn by wind and travel. Her dark hair hangs loose across her shoulders. Near her rests a coiled thread, frayed at one end, and a bronze sword abandoned in the sand. She does not rise when the ship approaches. She only watches the sea. Dionysus steps ashore quietly. He senses grief before learning her name. You follow him across the cooling sand. Each wave slides forward with a soft hiss, then retreats into darkness. The woman finally looks toward you. Her eyes hold exhaustion rather than fear. Have you come to leave me too? The question stops Dionysus. He has heard anger from kings. He has heard prayers from farmers. He has heard laughter from companions gathered around sacred fires. This voice carries something different. The emptiness left when hope has already departed. Her name is Ariadne. She is the daughter of King Minos of Crete, raised within a palace famous for beauty, wealth, and hidden terror. Beneath that palace lay the labyrinth, a twisting prison built to contain the Minotaur. Ariadne had once believed she understood her place within that world. Then Theseus arrived. The Athenian hero came to enter the labyrinth and kill the creature within. Ariadne saw him and made a choice that changed everything. She gave him a sword. She gave him a thread. Most importantly, she gave him trust. With her help, Theseus survived the maze. Together they fled Crete. Ariadne left behind her father, her family, and the only home she had ever known. She stepped aboard the hero's ship, believing that sacrifice would lead toward love. Instead, she awakened alone upon Naxos. The sails were already disappearing across the horizon. Ancient traditions disagree about why Theseus abandoned her. Some believed he acted from simple betrayal. Others said a divine command forced him to leave. Another version suggests Ariadne was already promised to Dionysus by fate. No one can know which story first reached the island's shores. Ariadne herself would have cared little for explanations. Abandonment feels the same whether caused by cowardice, destiny, or fear. Dionysus sits beside her without speaking. That silence matters. He does not immediately promise revenge. He does not tell her everything happens for a reason. He does not ask her to stop grieving. He simply remains. Night gathers slowly around you. The first stars appear above the sea. Ariadne watches them reflected in the dark water. I gave him everything, she whispers. Dionysus looks toward the vanished horizon. I know what it means to lose a life before it begins. She turns toward him. Only then does he tell her about Semele. Not every detail. Only enough. He speaks of a mother consumed by divine light. A child born through grief. Years spent hidden because someone powerful wished him gone. Ariadne listens. For the first time since waking alone, she hears pain that does not compete with her own. It recognizes it. Their connection begins there. Not in beauty, not in prophecy, in shared abandonment. Over the following days, Dionysus refuses to hurry her. His companions make camp among low hills overlooking the beach. Satyrs gather driftwood. Maenads weave fresh clothing from linen carried aboard the ship. An elderly woman prepares warm broth flavored with herbs and sea salt. No one demands gratitude. Ariadne sleeps often. Sometimes she wakes crying. Sometimes she walks the beach alone, following footprints that the tide soon erases. Dionysus watches from a distance. He has learned that protection can become another form of control when offered without patience, so he waits. One evening, Ariadne joins the travelers beside a small fire. The flames crackle softly beneath a star-filled sky. Someone plays a gentle melody upon a reed pipe. Wine is mixed carefully with water and passed around in clay cups. Ariadne refuses at first. Dionysus nods. Nothing more is said. Later, she reaches for the cup herself. She drinks only a little. The warmth does not erase her sorrow. It simply loosens the silence around it. She begins speaking about Crete, about palace courtyards bright with painted walls, about the smell of cedar chests and sea wind, about the labyrinth. Most of all, she speaks about the thread. She had believed it represented escape. Now it feels like a symbol of everything binding her to a life that no longer exists. Dionysus lifts the frayed coil from beside her. A thread can lead someone outward, he says. It can also lead someone home. I have no home. Not yet. The words are gentle. Not a promise, an invitation. Days become weeks. Ariadne begins walking with the company. She learns their songs slowly. She laughs once when a satyr falls into a basket of figs. The sound surprises everyone. No one mentions it. Healing often retreats when watched too closely. Dionysus also changes. Until now, his compassion has belonged to villages, strangers, and crowds. With Ariadne, love becomes personal. That frightens him. Everyone he loves seems vulnerable. Semele died. The nymphs who raised him remain hidden because of Hera. His followers face danger whenever rulers oppose his worship. To love Ariadne means accepting another possible loss. One night he dreams of a crown burning among the stars. A woman's voice asks whether immortality can protect the heart. He wakes beside the dying fire without an answer. Ancient dream traditions often treated crowns as signs of destiny, but burning crowns could suggest sacrifice, transformation, or power gained through suffering. Dionysus says nothing about the dream, yet the next evening he asks Ariadne to walk with him beyond the camp. Moonlight covers the hills in pale silver. Crickets sing among the rocks. Far below, waves strike the shore with slow, patient rhythm. At the summit stands an abandoned shrine. Its marble altar is cracked. Ivy has grown across one side. Ariadne touches the leaves. They survive everywhere. They remember how to return. Dionysus replies. He turns toward her. No royal procession surrounds them. No immortal choir fills the night. Only wind, stars, the scent of wild thyme beneath their feet. He tells her who he truly is. Not merely a traveler. Not merely a teacher of vines. A son of Zeus, a twice-born god. Ariadne studies him for a long time. Why tell me now? Because I do not want your trust while hiding behind another name. The answer moves her more deeply than any display of power. Theseus once accepted her trust while leaving uncertainty behind him. Dionysus offers truth before asking for anything. Their relationship changes in that moment. Not into sudden happiness, into possibility. Some traditions say Dionysus placed a radiant crown upon Ariadne's head and later set it among the stars. Others believe the crown represented her transformation from abandoned princess to immortal queen. Whatever the symbolism, the emotional truth remains clear. Dionysus does not rescue Ariadne by erasing her past. He gives her space to become more than what happened to her. In return, Ariadne teaches him something no wandering crowd could teach. A god may inspire thousands, yet still need one person who sees the loneliness behind the ivy crown. Together they descend toward the camp. The stars seem brighter above Naxos. Far across the sea, Theseus continues toward Athens, unaware that the woman he abandoned is beginning a greater life without him. Yet love rarely ends uncertainty. Hera still watches. Kings still resist. The followers of Dionysus continue growing. And somewhere beyond the island, another conflict waits to test whether the god of liberation can remain merciful when pride turns openly cruel. For tonight, however, Ariadne walks beside him, not behind, not rescued, chosen. And beneath the quiet stars, Dionysus begins discovering that love is another form of transformation, perhaps the most dangerous and beautiful of all. The island of Naxos grows peaceful beneath the changing seasons. Vines climb stone terraces above the sea. Goats wander between sunlit rocks. At dusk, torches glow outside simple homes while music carries gently across the hills. Ariadne no longer watches the horizon for the ship that abandoned her. She has begun building a different life among people who know her, not as a deserted princess, but as someone who survived betrayal without surrendering her heart. Dionysus watches that transformation with quiet gratitude. For a time, he allows himself to believe that peace may last. Yet peace rarely remains untouched by memory. Hera has not forgotten him, nor has the world ceased resisting what he represents. You leave Naxos beneath a pale morning sky, crossing waters bright with early sunlight. Ariadne remains beside Dionysus upon the deck. Her presence changes the company. She speaks calmly with frightened travelers. She notices when someone withdraws from the evening fire. She understands grief without asking it to explain itself. Where Dionysus brings release, Ariadne brings steadiness. Their relationship has become a balance. He helps her remember joy. She helps him remember restraint. This balance soon becomes necessary. Across the sea, word reaches the travelers of a noble household where strange suffering has begun. The master of the estate, a respected man named Proetus in some traditions, has 3 daughters known for beauty, intelligence, and pride. The surviving stories disagree about what they did. Some say they mocked Dionysus. Others claim they refused his ceremonies. Another tradition suggests they rejected Hera instead, and later storytellers transferred their punishment from one goddess to another. The uncertainty has never disappeared. What matters is what follows. The daughters begin changing. At first, they complain of restless dreams. They see vines crawling across their chamber walls. They hear drums beneath the earth. They wake convinced that unseen animals are breathing beside their beds. Servants find them wandering through courtyards before dawn, their bare feet stained with dust and dew. Then fear overtakes them completely. They flee into the mountains. Villagers report seeing them running through forests, crying that their bodies are no longer human. One believes she has become a cow. Another hears invisible voices. The third tears at her clothing as though vines are tightening around her skin. Ancient Greeks often understood madness as something both human and divine. It could arise from grief, illness, guilt, or supernatural punishment. Dionysus became closely associated with these altered states because his power revealed what ordinary consciousness tried to conceal. He could loosen the mind. He could also restore it. When the household begs for help, Dionysus agrees to go. One companion objects. They rejected you. Perhaps. They insulted your worship. Perhaps. Then why help them? Dionysus looks toward the distant mountains. Because suffering does not become less real when pride caused it. The answer reveals how far he has come. The younger god, who first shared wine, believed every gift would be used wisely. The traveler who met Lycurgus learned that fear often hides beneath authority. Ariadne taught him that people wounded by betrayal need patience more than judgment. Now he faces a harder question. Can mercy follow punishment? You climb into the mountains as evening gathers. Pine branches sway beneath cold wind. The scent of resin mixes with damp soil and crushed leaves. Somewhere above, a woman screams. The sound echoes across the valley, not with rage, with terror. Dionysus follows it into a narrow clearing lit by moonlight. The 3 sisters crouch beneath an ancient oak. Their hair is tangled. Their hands are scratched from thorns. Their eyes move wildly through shadows no one else can see. One raises a stone when Dionysus approaches. Stay away. I will. He stops several paces away. Another sister whispers, the forest is inside us. Dionysus sits upon the ground. He does not command them to kneel. He does not announce himself. He remains still. The sisters continue muttering through the night. Sometimes they cry. Sometimes they laugh without reason. Sometimes they accuse one another of betrayal. Dionysus listens. Ariadne waits nearby, wrapped in a dark cloak against the mountain cold. She says nothing. Yet her presence reminds him that broken minds cannot be forced back into wholeness. Near dawn, Dionysus begins singing. The melody is simple, one the nymphs of Nysa once used to calm him during storms. It carries no words, only repetition. Slow, gentle, steady. The sisters do not respond at first. Then one begins breathing in time with the song. Another lowers the stone. The third closes her eyes. Sunlight appears gradually between the trees. Dionysus places a shallow cup of water upon the earth between them. No wine, no sacred symbol, only water. One sister crawls toward it. She drinks. Nothing miraculous happens, not immediately, but the terror within her eyes begins to soften. Over several days, Dionysus remains with them. He leads them away from the deepest forest. He encourages them to sleep near running water. He gives them food in small portions. He asks the Maenads to sing quietly, never loudly. He removes every torch after sunset because flickering shadows increase their fear. The god of ecstasy learns to create calm. This may be one of his most important transformations. He discovers that power is not always expressed by awakening emotion. Sometimes power means lowering its voice. Eventually, the sisters begin recognizing one another again. Their speech becomes clearer. Their fear recedes. When they finally ask what happened, Dionysus does not give them a complete answer. Perhaps he cannot. Ancient myths leave open whether he caused their madness, merely allowed it, or arrived only after another power had already acted. Dionysus carries that uncertainty himself. Had his wounded pride contributed to their suffering? Had their rejection awakened something destructive within them? Or had storytellers later placed his name upon a much older tale? No one can know destiny's intention with certainty. The sisters return home. Their father offers treasure. Dionysus refuses. Instead, he asks that a spring near the mountain path remain open to travelers, women, shepherds, and the poor, a place of rest, a place where frightened minds may hear water before hearing judgment. The request surprises everyone, yet the spring becomes sacred. Generations later, people still leave small cups beside it. Surviving evidence suggests that several Greek healing traditions connected flowing water, music, sleep, and ritual purification. Some researchers believe stories like this preserved memories of treatments practiced long before formal medicine developed. The myth never becomes a lecture. It remains a question. Where does divine punishment end and healing begin? That question follows Dionysus. So does responsibility. As the company prepares to depart, one of the sisters approaches him. "Did you forgive us?" Dionysus studies her face. "I do not know whether forgiveness belongs only to me." She looks confused. He continues gently, "But I know you should not carry fear forever." The answer is imperfect, human. Perhaps that is why it feels true. That night, Dionysus dreams of two masks resting upon the same altar. One laughs. The other weeps. A flame burns between them without consuming either. When he wakes, he understands another piece of his destiny. He will never be only the god of joy, nor only the god of terror. He will stand between both. He will reveal how closely they live together. Ariadne finds him watching the sunrise. "You are troubled. I am learning that mercy cannot erase consequences." "No, but it can decide what follows them." He turns toward her. The words settle deeply within him. Soon, this lesson will be tested again, not by frightened sisters, by a proud king who will reject every warning, insult every sign, and refuse every path toward understanding. The road ahead leads toward Thebes, toward the city of Semele, toward the place where Dionysus' life first began in fire. And there, beneath the shadow of his mother's home, mercy and madness will meet in their most tragic form. The road home feels strangely unfamiliar, although every mile brings you closer to Thebes. Nothing resembles the world Dionysus left behind before his years of wandering. The forests seem smaller than those surrounding Mount Nysa. The rivers flow with the same quiet determination. Yet now they carry memories instead of mysteries. Every step returns him toward the beginning, toward Semele, toward the city where his mother once smiled beneath warm spring sunlight, never imagining that one request would change both her life and the fate of Olympus. The air grows warmer as summer approaches. Golden wheat ripples across broad fields outside the city. Shepherds guide their flocks beneath scattered olive trees. Smoke rises gently from village hearths, while swallows circle above white stone houses. Everything appears peaceful. Appearances deceive. Long before Dionysus reaches the gates, Rumors have already entered the city. Some speak of miraculous vineyards. Others describe joyful ceremonies held beneath the stars. Many tell stories of women leaving their homes to climb nearby mountains, carrying ivy, torches, and drums while singing hymns to a newly returned god. Not everyone welcomes these stories. The ruler of Thebes is Pentheus, young, intelligent, disciplined, the grandson of Cadmus, the city's legendary founder. He inherited a kingdom that values order above uncertainty, law above emotion, reason above ecstasy. To Pentheus, these qualities are not flaws. They are civilization itself. When his advisors first mention Dionysus, Pentheus dismisses the reports. A wandering priest, nothing more. Then another messenger arrives. Entire households have begun honoring the mysterious stranger. Women leave their weaving. Farmers pause their work. Young people gather at night for sacred dances beyond the city walls. Pentheus's patience begins to fray. They abandon duty. One elderly counselor clears his throat carefully. They return before sunrise. They still neglect responsibility. They say the ceremonies bring peace. They bring disorder. His answer comes instantly. He has already reached his conclusion. Fear often decides long before evidence arrives. You walk beside Dionysus as Thebes finally appears upon the horizon. Its familiar walls glow beneath the afternoon sun. For a long moment he says nothing. Ariadne notices. This was your mother's home. Yes. What do you feel? He studies the distant towers. Everything. Grief, curiosity, longing, uncertainty. He has imagined this return countless times. None of those imaginings prepared him for its quiet reality. The company stops beside a spring shaded by ancient plane trees. Dionysus kneels to drink. The water is cool. Its taste reminds him unexpectedly of Mount Nysa. He smiles softly. Home, he realizes, sometimes arrives through memory rather than place. As evening falls, several women secretly leave Thebes to meet the travelers. Some are elderly enough to remember stories about Semele. Others have heard only whispers pass from grandmothers. They approach cautiously. One studies Dionysus' face. You have her eyes. Silence follows. No miracle, no thunder, only recognition for the first time in his life. Someone sees not merely a wandering teacher or mysterious god. She sees Semele's son. The moment humbles him more deeply than any temple offering ever could. Yet inside the palace, Pentheus receives very different news. The stranger camps outside the city. How many followers? More each day. Armed? No. Dangerous. The messenger hesitates. I do not know. Pentheus stands. Then I do. His certainty has become complete. He summons soldiers. Orders are given. Scouts ride through the countryside. Every road leading toward the hills comes under careful watch. The king believes he is protecting Thebes. Perhaps, from his perspective, he truly is. That complexity has always made Pentheus a tragic figure rather than a simple villain. He fears losing control because he sincerely believes control keeps people safe. Unfortunately, fear often mistakes freedom for chaos. The following morning, Dionysus enters Thebes alone. No procession follows him. No companions. No banners. He walks quietly through familiar streets, where merchants arrange pottery beneath striped awnings, and bakers remove warm loaves from clay ovens. The smells overwhelm him. Fresh bread, olive oil, wood smoke, figs drying beneath woven baskets. These scents belonged to his mother once. Somewhere nearby she laughed. Somewhere nearby she dreamed of a future she never lived to see. The city itself becomes a memory she can no longer claim. Citizens recognize the ivy wreath. Whispers spread. He has come. Within minutes, soldiers surround him. Their captain steps forward. By order of King Pentheus. I know. You are under arrest. Dionysus offers his hands peacefully. The soldiers seem confused. One expected resistance. Another perhaps expected lightning from the sky. Neither arrives. Ancient playwright Euripides would later make this one of the defining moments of his Bacchae. Some researchers believe the peaceful surrender reveals Dionysus's extraordinary confidence. Others argue it demonstrates something deeper. Divine truth rarely needs immediate victory. Sometimes it allows misunderstanding to reveal itself completely. The prison beneath the palace is cool and dim. Moisture gathers upon rough stone walls. A single shaft of sunlight enters through a narrow opening high above. The iron door closes heavily behind him. Outside, guards whisper uneasily. He does not seem dangerous. No. Then why does the king fear him? Neither answers. That evening, Pentheus descends into the prison himself. Torchlight flickers across damp stone. The young king studies his prisoner carefully. You claim to be a god. I have claimed only my name. You deceive women. I remind them they are alive. You weaken the city. I ask people to celebrate together. Pentheus laughs sharply. You speak beautifully. It changes nothing. Dionysus meets his gaze calmly. What is it you fear? The question lands harder than accusation. Pentheus hesitates, only briefly. I fear disorder. And joy. Joy becomes disorder. Must it? The king turns away. Conversation has become dangerous. Not because Dionysus threatens him, because the questions refuse easy answers. He orders tighter security. Double the guards. Lock every gate. No visitors. As night deepens, strange signs begin appearing across Thebes. The earth trembles gently beneath the prison. Not enough to destroy, enough to awaken. Torches flare without wind. Wine stored in palace cellars mysteriously overflows from sealed jars. Some servants report hearing distant flutes where no musicians stand. Others smell fresh ivy growing inside empty corridors. Ancient audiences would have recognized these as divine warnings. Pentheus recognizes only coincidence or conspiracy. He refuses every invitation toward humility. Shortly before dawn, the prison door swings open. No key turns. No guard touches it. The chains around Dionysus fall silently onto the stone floor. He walks outside. The guards sleep peacefully against the walls. No violence, no punishment. Only impossible freedom, standing beneath the awakening sky. Dionysus gazes toward Mount Cithaeron, rising beyond the city. Upon its distant slopes, the women of Thebes continue their sacred ceremonies beneath ancient trees. Among them is Agave, Pentheus's own mother. The threads of destiny have quietly drawn together. Behind him, the city still sleeps. Ahead, tragedy waits among the mountains. Ariadne finds him outside the palace walls. You escaped. I was never truly imprisoned. She studies his face. You are sad, because I know what comes next. For the first time since leaving Mount Nysa. Dionysus does not wonder whether compassion alone can change another person's heart. He already knows the answer. Some doors remain closed until consequences open them. Pentheus has ignored dreams, rejected warnings, refused mercy, mocked mystery. Yet even now destiny offers him one final chance. Whether he accepts it will decide not only his own fate, but the future memory of every soul within Thebes. The mountain waits beneath the morning mist, and somewhere, among its ancient pines, the last thread of the story has already begun to tighten. The morning after Pentheus falls, Thebes becomes quieter than anyone can remember. No marketplace arguments drift through the streets. No musicians play beside the fountains. Even the pigeons circling above the palace seem strangely reluctant to land. Grief has its own silence. You walk slowly through the city with Dionysus. The triumph many expected never arrives. No celebration follows. No victorious procession fills the roads. Instead, people lower their eyes as he passes. Some kneel. Others quietly weep. The story of Pentheus will be remembered for centuries. Yet Dionysus himself seems unwilling to dwell upon it. He knows the king was destroyed not by simple cruelty, but by a fear that refused every opportunity to become understanding. That realization brings no satisfaction, only sadness. Outside the city walls, the women who wandered the mountains slowly return to themselves. Agave, Pentheus's mother, now understands the terrible illusion that overtook her mind. She carries sorrow that no mortal words can lighten. Dionysus does not speak against her. He does not condemn her. He simply allows grief to exist. Sometimes mercy consists of refusing to add another wound. Days later, the company departs from Thebes. The road leads south beneath broad olive groves where cicadas sing in the afternoon heat. Ariadne walks beside Dionysus, noticing that he has become unusually quiet. You are thinking of your mother. I have always been thinking of her. The answer surprises neither of them. Semele has never truly left his heart. Every village he helped, every vineyard he restored, every lonely traveler he comforted. Some part of him had always imagined telling his mother about it. Yet she remains beyond the reach of ordinary roads, far beneath the living world, within the realm of Hades. One evening, the travelers camp beside a clear spring hidden among ancient laurels. As darkness settles, Dionysus dreams again. He sees Semele standing behind a river of black water. She smiles gently, not sadly. She does not ask to be rescued. She only reaches toward him. Before their hands can touch, the dream dissolves into mist. He wakes before dawn. The stars remain bright overhead. Their reflection shimmers across the spring until it resembles another sky hidden beneath the earth. Ariadne finds him sitting quietly beside the water. You saw her again. He nods. I cannot keep walking away. The words carry enormous weight. For the first time, Dionysus understands that some journeys cannot be made for strangers. They must be made for love. Ancient Greece preserved many stories of heroes descending into the underworld. Orpheus sought Eurydice. Heracles captured Cerberus. Odysseus searched for prophecy among the dead. Now Dionysus prepares for a different purpose. Not glory, not knowledge, family. Some surviving traditions identify the entrance to Hades near the marshes of Lerna. Others speak of hidden caves where cold winds rose from impossible depths. Historians continue to debate whether these sacred places represented symbolic thresholds or actual sites of religious pilgrimage. The mystery remains. Perhaps every cave leading into darkness became a reminder that death always waits beneath the familiar world. You travel toward one such place. The landscape changes gradually. Olive groves give way to rough limestone hills, where little grows beyond hardy shrubs and twisted juniper. Birds become fewer. Even the breeze seems quieter. At the base of a steep cliff waits a cave. Its entrance is wide enough for several people to walk side by side. Cold air flows outward continuously, not harsh, simply ancient. Dionysus turns toward his companions. You must remain here. One satyr immediately protests. We will follow. No. A Maenad steps forward. You should not walk alone. I will not. They understand. No mortal companion may accompany him farther. Only memory. Only love. Ariadne approaches last. She places her hand gently upon his. You came to find me when I believed I had been forgotten. He smiles softly. I remember. Now bring her home. Without another word, Dionysus enters the cave. You follow. The sunlight disappears slowly behind you. The sound of the outside world fades. Water drips steadily from unseen stone. Each step echoes through vast chambers hidden beneath the earth. The air grows colder, yet strangely peaceful. There is no fire, no screaming, only endless twilight. The deeper you travel, the less ordinary time seems to matter. Eventually, the passage opens into a silent shore where a dark river flows without ripple or current. The Styx. Its surface reflects nothing. Not stars, not faces, only darkness itself. Beside the water waits Charon. The ancient ferryman appears exactly as countless generations imagined him. His robe hangs heavily about his thin frame. His eyes reveal neither kindness nor cruelty, only endless duty. He studies Dionysus quietly. You come alive. I do. Few do. I seek my mother. Charon remains silent for a long moment. Then he gestures toward the boat. No coin, no payment, only purpose. The small vessel glides across the river without sound. Mist gathers above the black water until every shoreline disappears. You cannot tell how long the crossing lasts. Minutes, perhaps centuries. The underworld refuses ordinary measurements. When the boat reaches the opposite bank, another figure waits. Hermes, messenger of the gods, guide of wandering souls. He smiles faintly. I wondered when you would come. You already knew. Hermes shrugs. I suspected. Together, they walk through quiet meadows where pale flowers bloom beneath a sky without sun. Countless spirits wander peacefully, speaking in soft voices that resemble distant wind moving through dry grass. No one hurries. No one ages. Memory itself seems to drift gently through the air. Finally, they arrive before the palace of Hades. Dark stone rises majestically from the plain, not threatening, simply eternal. At its entrance stand Hades and Persephone, king and queen. They greet Dionysus with solemn dignity. You seek Semele. I do. Hades studies him carefully. Many ask to take someone from my realm. Most leave alone. I know. Persephone steps forward. Unlike Hades, her expression carries quiet compassion. You ask not because you reject death. No, you ask because love has continued beyond it. Yes. The queen smiles almost imperceptibly. She understands better than most. Every year she herself journeys between two worlds. Perhaps no one appreciates reunion more deeply. Hades considers the request. Ancient traditions describe him as stern but rarely unjust. The balance between life and death must be preserved. Yet exceptions exist, especially when the request comes from one who himself has known death before birth. You are twice born. I am. You understand both worlds. I try. Silence fills the great hall. Then Hades nods. Bring her. Moments later, Semele appears. She looks exactly as Dionysus remembered from his dreams. Young, peaceful, free from suffering. For a long time, neither speaks. No words seem large enough. Finally, she reaches forward. This time, their hands meet. The son who never knew his mother embraces the woman who never watched her child grow. The centuries between them disappear. Even Hermes lowers his gaze. Even Hades says nothing. Some reunions deserve complete silence. Semele gently touches Dionysus's face. You became kind. He smiles through quiet tears. I learned from those who loved me. She already knows. The dead often understand more than the living imagine. With Hades' blessing, Semele walks beside her son toward the world above. Ancient storytellers say she did not return merely as a mortal restored to life. Zeus later welcomed her fully into Olympus, granting her immortality under the divine name Thyone. Some researchers believe this transformation symbolized the complete healing of Dionysus's broken family. The mother lost to fire became eternal among the gods. The child born through tragedy completed the circle begun before his first breath. As sunlight finally returns beyond the mouth of the cave, Semele pauses. She closes her eyes. Warm air touches her face once more. Birdsong replaces silence. The scent of thyme and pine replaces the stillness of the underworld. Life welcomes her again. Dionysus stands beside her, not as the frightened child who once lost everything, but as the god who crossed death itself for love. Far above, Olympus watches. Another thread of destiny has quietly come to rest, yet one final transformation still awaits. For soon, the wandering god who spent his life searching for belonging will discover that his own place has been waiting among the immortals all along. The ascent from the mortal world begins beneath a sky washed clean by morning rain. Clouds drift slowly above the mountains, their edges glowing pale gold in the early light. Water gathers upon laurel leaves and slips quietly onto the dark earth. The air carries the cool scent of pine, wet stone, and distant wildflowers opening beneath the sun. You walk beside Dionysus and Semele as they leave the cave behind. His companions wait outside in silence. For many hours they have watched the shadowed entrance, uncertain whether their god will return. Some feared the underworld would claim him. Others believed no power could prevent his return. Ariadne alone remained calm, not because she felt no fear, because she understood what love had asked him to do. When Dionysus finally steps into the light, relief passes through the gathering like a warm wind. Then they see Semele. No one speaks. The woman whose death shaped every year of Dionysus's life now stands beside him, alive in a form untouched by age. Her face carries neither the confusion of resurrection nor the sorrow of one torn from peace. She looks complete. The oldest Maenad kneels. The satyrs lower their heads. Even the birds in the surrounding trees seem to quiet. Semele studies the strange family gathered around her son. She sees mountain wanderers, widows, shepherds, foreigners, dancers, and creatures belonging partly to the wild. These are not the companions a queen might have expected. Yet she smiles. You were never alone. Dionysus looks across the faces before him. No. The answer is simple. It contains an entire lifetime. For so long he believed himself abandoned by destiny, hidden from Hera, separated from his mother, sent away from Olympus, forced to discover his identity among strangers. Now he understands. Belonging was not something waiting at the end of the road. It grew around him with every act of trust. Still, another journey remains. Zeus has sent a sign. High above the eastern horizon, an eagle circles through breaks in the clouds. It turns 3 times before flying toward Mount Olympus. Ancient people would have recognized the message immediately. The king of the gods is calling his son home. Dionysus watches the eagle disappear. He feels no sudden triumph, only hesitation. Olympus has always existed in his imagination as both birthplace and rejection. It is where Zeus protected him. It is also where Hera's anger began. Its shining halls represent divine recognition, yet they also carry the memory of every secret that shaped his childhood. Ariadne senses the conflict. You have crossed the world seeking a place within it. He nods. What if Olympus asks you to become someone else? Then it is not home. Her reply comes without pause. This is why he loves her. She never asks him to exchange truth for acceptance. Together, the company begins climbing. The lower slopes of Olympus are covered in dense forests, where sunlight breaks through leaves in narrow golden shafts. Streams rush over moss-covered stones. The warmth of the lowlands fades with every turning path. Soon the air becomes thin and cold. Mountain mist gathers around you. The world below slowly disappears. Some traditions imagined Olympus as a physical mountain beyond ordinary reach. Others described it as a divine realm existing above the clouds, untouched by winter and human sorrow. Surviving poetry often moves between both visions without explaining where one ends and the other begins. Perhaps sacred places have always resisted simple geography. The climb continues until the clouds themselves become a silver sea beneath your feet. Above them rises a landscape no mortal traveler could reach alone. Marble terraces gleam beneath eternal sunlight. Golden-roofed halls stand among gardens where flowers never wither. Sacred fires burn without smoke. The air carries music so distant and clear that it seems woven into the light itself. The gods are waiting. Athena stands near a row of pale columns, her expression thoughtful and calm. Apollo rests one hand upon his lyre. Artemis watches from beside a silver-barked tree. Hermes smiles openly, pleased to see the traveler who has crossed more roads than most immortals ever attempt. Ares remains still. Aphrodite studies Ariadne with quiet interest. At the center stands Zeus. Beside him waits Hera. Dionysus stops. The mountain wind moves through the ivy around his brow. Every childhood fear returns in a single breath. He remembers hiding among the nymphs. He remembers warnings spoken in hushed voices. He remembers learning that someone within heaven wished him erased before he could even speak. Hera meets his gaze. For a moment, no one knows what will happen. Ancient traditions do not preserve one clear reconciliation between them. In some stories, Hera continues to oppose Dionysus. In others, his acceptance among the Olympians implies that hostility eventually softened or became absorbed into divine order. Another interpretation survives. Perhaps reconciliation was never complete. Perhaps divine families, like mortal ones, learned to exist beside wounds that never entirely vanished. Zeus steps forward first. My son. The words echo through the hall. Not hidden, not whispered. Publicly spoken before every god. Dionysus lowers his head. For Zeus, this moment carries its own reckoning. He protected the child after Semile's death, yet he also sent him away. He saved his life, but could not give him a childhood free from fear. No fatherly declaration can erase that. Still, recognition matters. You have walked among mortals, Zeus continues. You have taught them cultivation, celebration, restraint, and renewal. You have crossed borders no throne could command. You have brought Semele from death. Zeus turns toward the gathered gods. He belongs here. Dionysus looks toward Hera. Everything now depends upon her silence. At last she speaks. You survived every consequence of your birth. Her voice is controlled, not warm, not cruel. You became more than the secret that created you. Dionysus studies her carefully. Is this acceptance, respect, merely surrender before destiny? No one could know her final intention, yet she does not object. Sometimes peace begins not with affection but with the refusal to continue harm. Semele steps forward. Hera's gaze shifts toward the woman whose life became entangled with her deepest wounds. No apology is offered. No accusation follows. Between immortals, perhaps some truths are too old for easy words. They stand beneath the same light. For now, that is enough. Zeus welcomes Semele among the gods under the name Theon. The sacred fire brightens. Music rises softly through the halls. The mortal woman consumed by divine radiance now enters Olympus without fear. Dionysus watches her cross the marble terrace. The sight heals something within him that wandering never could. Then Zeus offers him a place among the Olympians, not as a guest, not as an uncertain child, as a god with his own sphere, his own mysteries, and his own followers. Some later traditions wondered whether Dionysus replaced Hestia among a council of 12 Olympians. Others treated the number 12 symbolically and never described any replacement at all. Historians continue to debate how these divine groupings changed between regions and centuries. Dionysus would have cared little for counting seats. His place could never be contained by a chair. He belongs to Olympus, yet he also belongs to mountain paths, village fires, foreign harbors, dark theaters, and vineyards cut into mortal hillsides. He remains both inside and outside. That is what separates him from every other god. He knows the underworld. He knows exile. He knows human hunger, grief, laughter, and fear. Olympus accepts him only after the world has already done so. That evening a feast is prepared. Nectar fills golden cups. Though Dionysus asks for mortal wine as well, the request surprises the gods. He pours it carefully, mixed, measured, shared. Ariadne sits beside him beneath a ceiling painted with constellations. Semele speaks quietly with Zeus. Hermes tells stories from distant roads. Apollo plays a calm melody that carries through the open halls toward the night beyond. For a brief moment, every thread of Dionysus's life seems gathered together. He has found love, recovered his mother, received his father's recognition, survived Hera's anger, claimed his divine place. Yet as the feast grows quiet, Dionysus walks alone onto a high terrace. Below him, the mortal world glows beneath scattered stars. Tiny fires mark villages. Ships carry lamps across dark seas. Somewhere, farmers open jars of wine after difficult harvests. Somewhere, a grieving family shares stories about someone lost. Somewhere, strangers laugh together beneath vines. Dionysus realizes Olympus cannot become his final destination. A throne may offer honor. It cannot replace the road. He turns back toward the hall only when Ariadne joins him. You are thinking of leaving again. Not leaving, returning. She understands. His reign will not resemble the rule of Zeus or the authority of kings. He will govern through presence, through ritual, through theater, wine, dance, grief, masks, and transformation. His followers will not always find him in temples. Sometimes they will meet him in the moment when restraint loosens and hidden truth comes near the surface. That power remains both beautiful and dangerous. And soon Dionysus must discover what happens when mortals seek not merely his gifts, but the secret identity waiting behind every mask. Life upon Olympus never stills. The immortal halls remain bright beneath a sky untouched by storm. Yet Dionysus does not linger there for long. While other gods are content to watch the world from marble terraces, he continues descending among mortals. The road has become part of his nature. Even after finding his place among the Olympians, he cannot abandon those whose lives rise and fall within a single lifetime. Perhaps that is why they love him. He remembers what it means to be uncertain. The vineyards flourish wherever his followers care for them with patience. Harvest festivals spread from village to village. Songs once whispered in secret are now sung openly beside hills covered in ripening grapes. Yet something else begins growing alongside the vines. Stories. No two are exactly alike. In one town, Dionysus appears as a laughing traveler with dusty sandals. In another, an old shepherd claims the god walked beside him through a winter storm. Elsewhere, fishermen insist a handsome stranger calmed a violent sea simply by placing his hand upon the water. Children describe him differently from soldiers. Poets describe him differently from farmers. None of them are entirely wrong. Dionysus has learned that truth often wears many faces. That realization slowly transforms the ceremonies held in his honor. At first, the gatherings remain simple. Families thank the earth for another harvest. Neighbors share bread, olives, figs, and carefully mixed wine. Musicians play while dancers circle beneath the stars. Then someone ties a smiling face onto a piece of linen. Another paints exaggerated eyes upon carved wood. Soon masks begin appearing everywhere. Some laugh, some cry. Some appear old, others impossibly young. A visitor asks an elderly priest why everyone hides their face. The old man smiles. They are not hiding. What are they doing? They are discovering. The answer spreads far beyond that small sanctuary. Long before grand theatres rise across Greece, sacred festivals honoring Dionysus already contain the seeds of dramatic performance. Participants step outside their ordinary identities. A shepherd becomes a king. A widow becomes a prophetess. A fisherman becomes a foolish old man who makes everyone laugh for a few precious hours. People experience lives other than their own. Dionysus watches quietly from among the crowd. He rarely announces himself. Instead, he enjoys observing what happens when ordinary people become free enough to imagine someone else's heart. One evening, a young boy refuses to wear his mask. It is foolish. His grandfather kneels beside him. What frightens you? I do not want people to laugh. They will. The boy lowers his eyes. The old man gently places the unfinished mask into his hands. They will laugh because they recognize themselves. The child finally joins the procession. His awkward performance becomes everyone's favorite memory that night. Not because it is perfect, because it is honest. Watching from the edge of the celebration, Dionysus smiles. Joy born from sincerity lasts longer than joy borrowed from pride. As years pass, traveling performers begin carrying these sacred stories from one city to another. Simple songs become dialogues. Dialogues become performances. Performances slowly become something entirely new. Theatre. Ancient Athens would later celebrate Dionysus with dramatic festivals that produced some of humanity's greatest tragedies and comedies. The surviving works of Aeschylus, Sophocles, Euripides, and Aristophanes all grew from celebrations dedicated to the god whose mysteries embraced both laughter and sorrow. To Dionysus, this evolution feels perfectly natural. Human beings understand themselves through stories, sometimes more deeply than through laws. You stand beside him outside a hillside performance where villagers gather beneath the open sky. The actors wear masks carved from light wood. One portrays a proud king, another a grieving mother. The audience laughs. Moments later, many quietly wipe tears from their eyes. Dionysus notices that the same people who laughed hardest now weep most openly. He turns toward Ariadne. There. What? They have remembered. What? That both feelings belong together. Ariadne watches the audience. She understands. People who deny sorrow eventually lose the ability to experience joy fully. Those who bury laughter often bury hope beside it. Dionysus never separates the two, neither does life. During another festival, a philosopher approaches him without realizing whom he addresses. I dislike these celebrations. Why? They encourage emotion. And thinking, they distract from reason. Dionysus asks a simple question. Have you never wept? The philosopher hesitates. Of course. Did reason alone comfort you? The man remains silent. Dionysus does not argue further. He has learned that truth offered gently often travels farther than truth forced upon another. Not every observer understands his mysteries. Some continue accusing his followers of abandoning discipline. Others fear the ecstatic dances performed upon lonely mountains. Their concern is not entirely unreasonable. Anything powerful may be misused. Wine can nourish friendship. Wine can also destroy families. Freedom can restore broken spirits. Freedom can become reckless excess. Dionysus never stops wrestling with that tension. One night, while walking through vineyards silvered by moonlight, he confides this uncertainty to Semele. I gave them a gift. You did. Sometimes they turn it into something harmful. Semele bends to examine a vine heavy with fruit. Does the vine choose who drinks? No, it simply grows. He considers her words. Then am I responsible? You are responsible for teaching. She gently touches one ripe cluster. They remain responsible for choosing. The answer does not remove his burden. It makes it bearable. As generations pass, artists begin portraying Dionysus in surprising ways. Some carve him as a powerful bearded traveler carrying a drinking cup. Others depict him as eternally youthful, crowned with ivy and surrounded by panthers. Some emphasize gentleness, others emphasize ecstatic power. Every image captures only one aspect. No single sculpture can contain transformation itself. Perhaps that is why masks remain his truest symbol. Every person wears them. The obedient child, the fearless soldier, the perfect ruler, the cheerful neighbor, the confident merchant. Beneath each face waits another story. Dionysus never asks people to destroy their masks completely, only to remember they are wearing them. That awareness changes everything. One quiet autumn evening, after another successful harvest, Dionysus walks alone through rows of vines whose leaves have begun turning crimson and gold. The wind carries the sweet fragrance of crushed grapes. Above him, migrating birds cross the fading sky. He reflects upon every path he has traveled. Hidden infancy, lonely childhood, long wandering, Lycurgus, Ariadne, Pentheus, Semele, Olympus. Each experience has revealed another part of himself. Not one could have been skipped. Transformation, he now understands, cannot be hurried. A grape does not become wine in a single afternoon. Neither does a frightened child become a compassionate God without seasons of loss. Patience and hope. As darkness settles over the vineyard, He hears distant singing from another village, preparing its yearly festival. The melody drifts gently across the hills. It no longer belongs only to him. It belongs to humanity. For that is the greatest mystery Dionysus has given the world. Not wine, not dancing, not even theatre. He has taught people that the hidden parts of themselves need not remain hidden forever. Sometimes healing begins the moment the mask is gently lifted, and centuries after every vineyard has been harvested, every festival completed, and every actor left the stage. That lesson will continue, echoing wherever human hearts search for the courage to become fully known. Years pass differently for a god. Empires rise beside rivers that once flowed through quiet wilderness. Children who danced beneath Dionysus's vines grow old enough to teach the songs to grandchildren of their own. Stone shrines weather beneath rain and sunlight until ivy slowly claims their walls. Yet every autumn, somewhere, grapes still ripen. Every harvest, someone lifts a cup in gratitude. Every generation discovers once again that celebration is not merely an escape from hardship. It is one way of surviving it. You travel with Dionysus across lands that have changed countless times. Some villages have become thriving towns. Some kingdoms have disappeared so completely that only broken foundations remain beneath wild grass. Human memory is fragile. Stories prove stronger. He rarely announces himself now. Instead, he appears as a traveler sitting beside a lonely fire, a quiet guest at a wedding feast, or a stranger helping farmers gather the final baskets of fruit before the first frost. Few recognize him. Recognition is no longer important. Presence is. One evening, he arrives at a hillside vineyard where an elderly woman struggles to finish the harvest before rain arrives. Her hands tremble with age. Most of her family has already left for a distant city. Only one granddaughter remains to help. Together, they carry heavy baskets beneath darkening clouds. Without complaint, Dionysus joins them. The old woman assumes he is another passing laborer. "You've arrived at the right time," she says with a tired smile. So it seems. Rain begins just as the last basket reaches shelter. The woman laughs with relief. "You have saved our wine." "No," Dionysus replies gently. "You already had." She looks puzzled. "I only helped you finish." Later that night, she offers him a modest meal of bread, cheese, olives, and fresh figs. There is no palace, no golden goblet, only simple kindness. Before dawn, he quietly departs. When the family awakens, they discover a single ivy leaf resting upon the empty wooden cup he used during supper. For generations, they tell the story of the mysterious traveler who appeared exactly when hope seemed ready to disappear. Perhaps the story changes with each telling. The kindness does not. That is how myths often survive. Not through perfect memory, through lasting meaning. As centuries unfold, Dionysus notices another transformation. His followers begin asking deeper questions. Once they gathered mainly to celebrate harvests. Now they wonder about life itself. Why does joy vanish so quickly? Why must beauty fade? Why do love and grief seem to arrive together? No cup of wine can answer such questions. But perhaps it can help people face them together. One autumn festival. A young widow approaches Dionysus without recognizing him. "My husband died this spring. I'm sorry. I no longer wish to celebrate." He nods. "No one should force you." She watches dancers moving around a bonfire. "They say your festivals are about happiness." He smiles softly. "They are about being fully alive." "There is a difference. A great one." She studies the flames. "I do not think I remember how." "You laughed once." "Yes." "You loved once." "Yes." "You grieve now." "Yes." "Then your heart is still alive." She begins to cry. Not violently, quietly. Others nearby notice. No one interrupts. An elderly musician simply changes the melody, allowing slower notes to drift through the evening air. The widow remains beside the fire until sunrise. She never dances. She does not drink. She simply stays among people. Sometimes presence becomes the first step toward healing. Dionysus understands this better than ever before. He has crossed the distance between ecstasy and silence. Both belong within his sacred mysteries. As the years continue, philosophers attempt to explain him. Some insist he represents nature. Others argue he symbolizes freedom. Some describe him as chaos opposing order. Others call him the hidden force of creativity. Each explanation captures something true. None captures everything. Hermes laughs about this one afternoon while the two gods watch travelers crossing a mountain pass. They are still trying to define you. They always will. Does it bother you? Dionysus watches a child chasing butterflies through wildflowers. No. Why? Because a vineyard cannot be understood by describing only one vine. Hermes grins. That sounds almost philosophical. I have spent enough time with philosophers. The messenger god laughs aloud. Even the immortals, it seems, enjoy teasing one another. Another century passes. The great dramatic festivals become grander than ever. Thousands gather beneath open skies to watch actors wearing the familiar masks that first appeared in humble villages generations before. Kings sit beside farmers, merchants beside shepherds, rich beside poor, for a few hours. Everyone enters the same story. Dionysus attends every performance, not always visibly. Sometimes he sits unnoticed among the audience. Sometimes he stands backstage beside nervous young actors before their first appearance. He enjoys watching courage emerge in unexpected places. One frightened performer whispers into the darkness before stepping on stage. I hope the god is kind. Dionysus, standing only a few feet away disguised as an old stagehand, answers quietly. He understands fear. The young actor smiles, unaware whom he has thanked. Then he walks into the light. Ancient audiences believed tragedy offered catharsis, a cleansing of powerful emotions through story. Aristotle would later describe this idea in his writings. Though the experience itself had already lived within festivals honoring Dionysus for generations, the god smiles as the audience laughs, gasps, and weeps together. Once again, joy and sorrow share the same stage, exactly as they always have. Not every age remains peaceful. Wars return, cities burn, vineyards are trampled beneath marching armies. Temples collapse during earthquakes, statues lose their heads. Some rulers attempt to erase older traditions entirely, yet vines prove remarkably patient. Cut them back, and they grow again. Burn them, and hidden roots often survive beneath the earth. Dionysus watches kingdoms disappear, while tiny shoots emerge each spring from apparently lifeless wood. He sees himself reflected there, twice born, always returning. One evening, he climbs alone to a rocky hill overlooking countless vineyards, stretching toward the horizon. The sun sinks slowly beyond distant mountains, bathing the landscape in amber light. Ariadne joins him without speaking. They have shared enough years to understand silence. After a long while, she asks, "Do you ever wish life had been easier?" He thinks about Semele, about Hera, about exile, about Pentheus, about every lonely road between. Finally, he answers, "If it had been easier," he pauses, "I might never have understood the people I was meant to guide." Ariadne slips her hand into his. Below them, villagers begin lighting evening fires. Tiny points of warm light appear one by one across the valley. Each home contains different stories: birth, loss, hope, regret, laughter, forgiveness. The god who once searched desperately for his own place in the world now understands that his true home has never been limited to Olympus. It exists wherever people gather honestly, where strangers become companions, where grief is welcomed without shame, where celebration remembers suffering instead of pretending it never happened. The vine has reached beyond time itself. Its roots now grow within the human heart. Centuries begin to flow together, like rivers meeting the sea. The people who once knew Dionysus by name grow old and pass into memory. Their children inherit the vineyards. Their grandchildren inherit the stories. The songs change with each generation. Yet somewhere within every melody, the heartbeat remains the same. The god watches quietly. Immortality teaches patience. Mortals often imagine history as a series of endings. Kingdoms fall, temples crumble, languages fade. But the immortals understand something different. Nothing truly disappears all at once. It changes, just as grapes become wine, just as children become elders. Just as grief slowly becomes remembrance, you walk beside Dionysus through Greece during another harvest season. The vineyards are fuller than ever. Hills once covered only with wild shrubs now ripple with ordered rows of vines. Olive trees cast long afternoon shadows across winding roads. Merchants carry amphorae filled with carefully aged wine toward distant ports, where ships wait to carry them across the Mediterranean. His gift has become part of ordinary life. Few pause to wonder where it began. Dionysus does not mind. The greatest gifts often become so familiar that people forget they were ever gifts at all. In one village, an elderly storyteller gathers children beneath a broad oak tree. His hands are rough from decades of work. His voice trembles with age, yet his eyes brighten as he begins. Long ago, he says, there was a child who was born twice. The children lean closer. Some have heard fragments before. Others hear the tale for the first time. The old man speaks of Semele, of Zeus, of Hera's jealousy, of Mount Nisa, of vines that transform the world. He cannot remember every detail correctly. Some names are misplaced, some journeys shortened. A few miracles grow larger with every retelling. Dionysus smiles. Accuracy matters, meaning matters more. When the story ends, one little girl raises her hand. Was he happy? The old storyteller pauses. He had not expected that question. After thinking for a moment, he answers softly. I think, he learned how to be. Dionysus turns away before anyone notices the quiet emotion in his eyes. That simple answer feels truer than any perfect recitation of events. Years later, another generation gathers in a bustling city. This time, the stories unfold upon a great stage. Thousands fill stone seats carved into the hillside. The actors wear magnificent masks. Some laugh with impossible joy. Others weep with unbearable sorrow. The audience follows every emotion together. When the performance ends, strangers embrace. Old disagreements seem briefly forgotten. For one evening, an entire city has remembered that every human life contains both comedy and tragedy. Dionysus watches from the highest row. No one recognizes the quiet traveler wrapped in a simple cloak. He prefers it that way. A young playwright sits nearby, anxious before the premiere of his first work. I fear they will hate it. Without looking at him, Dionysus replies, They may. The young man sighs. That does not help. No. What should I do? Tell the truth anyway. The playwright laughs nervously. That sounds much harder. It is, years later. People will remember that playwright's work long after both he and his critics have disappeared. Truth has remarkable patience. As the centuries continue, philosophers write long scrolls attempting to explain Dionysus. Some describe him as the force of nature. Others call him the spirit of transformation. A few insist he represents irrational passion overcoming civilized order. Still others argue the opposite, claiming his festivals actually strengthen communities by allowing emotions to be expressed safely rather than buried. Dionysus reads none of these writings. Hermes does. One afternoon, the messenger god arrives carrying several scrolls tucked beneath his arm. They are arguing about you again. They always are. Hermes unrolls one dramatically. This philosopher believes you symbolize the eternal conflict between instinct and reason. And another says you are the hidden soul of civilization. And a third cannot decide whether you are dangerous or necessary. Dionysus laughs. Perhaps I am both. Hermes rolls the scroll shut. I thought you might say that. Not every memory remains kind. Some storytellers exaggerate the wildness of his followers until every festival appears reckless. Others soften every difficult moment, pretending Dionysus never brought fear or consequences. Neither version satisfies him. He remembers too clearly. Joy without responsibility becomes empty indulgence. Discipline without joy slowly hardens into despair. His life has always existed between those extremes. The balance remains delicate. One winter evening, Dionysus returns quietly to Mount Nisa. The nymphs who raised him no longer dwell there as they once did. Their sacred grove has become almost entirely reclaimed by the forest. The spring still flows. The same clear water slips gently over smooth stones before disappearing into moss and fern. He kneels beside it. The place feels both familiar and impossibly distant. Every journey eventually circles back toward its beginning. He closes his eyes. For a moment he hears laughter, children running through sunlight, the soft voices of the nymphs calling him home before dusk. The memories fade as gently as they came, yet they leave warmth behind. Ariadne finds him sitting there. You missed this place. I always will. Does it make you sad? He considers the question. No. What then? Grateful. The distinction matters. Sorrow looks only at what has been lost. Gratitude remembers that it was given at all. As spring returns once more, Dionysus travels across lands where his name has become known even among people who have never seen Greece. Merchants carry stories as easily as they carry wine. Travelers reshape myths to fit unfamiliar landscapes. Artists paint him differently. Poets give him new voices. Musicians compose fresh hymns. Every culture welcomes him in its own way. He does not resist the changes. Transformation has always been his oldest companion. One evening, While watching the sunset beside a distant vineyard far from the lands of his birth, Dionysus notices a young boy carefully planting a tiny vine cutting. His father kneels beside him. It will take years before it bears fruit. The boy frowns. That is too long. The father smiles, then plant it anyway. Dionysus watches them in silence. The lesson reaches beyond farming. Every meaningful gift asks someone to begin work whose full reward may belong to another generation. Semele never saw the man her son would become. The nymphs never witnessed his welcome upon Olympus. Pentheus never understood the warning offered to him, yet each played a part in the story that followed. Nothing stands alone. As twilight deepens, Dionysus looks toward the first evening star. The world beneath it continues changing. It always will. New kingdoms, new languages, new beliefs. Still, somewhere, people will continue gathering around tables to share bread and wine. Actors will continue stepping behind masks. Families will continue celebrating harvest after difficult years. Friends will continue laugh until tears come, and sometimes cry until laughter quietly returns, without always knowing why. They will keep repeating the sacred rhythm that Dionysus spent his life teaching, because some truths no longer belong to one god. They become part of being human. There comes a time when even endless wandering begins to feel different. Not finished, never finished, only quieter. Dionysus has crossed mountains where snow remains through summer. He has sailed seas whose horizons seemed without end. He has entered palaces beneath golden roofs and slept beside shepherds beneath rough woolen blankets. He has been welcomed as a god, dismissed as a stranger, feared as a threat, and loved as a companion. Now, as another autumn settles across the world, he feels a call that does not come from Olympus. It rises from the roads themselves, a sense that one final journey waits, not a campaign, not a conquest, a return. You find him standing at the edge of a vineyard shortly before dawn. Mist lies low between the rows. Each leaf carries small drops of water that catch the first grey light. Beyond the hills, the sky slowly brightens. Ariadne approaches quietly. You are leaving. He turns toward her. For a time. Where? I do not know. She smiles faintly. That has never stopped you. No sadness enters her voice. Their love has outgrown the fear of separation. Ariadne understands that Dionysus belongs partly to every threshold, every departure, every return. She does not ask him to remain where his spirit has already begun traveling. Instead, she places a simple crown of fresh ivy upon his head. Then go as yourself. The words stay with him for much of his life. Dionysus has moved between identities: hidden child, foreign wanderer, teacher, prisoner, avenger, lover, son, Olympian, god. Each name revealed something. None contained everything. Now he travels without needing to prove any of them. The road leads first toward Thebes. The city has changed. New walls stand where older ones once crumbled. The palace of Pentheus has long since disappeared, its stones reused in homes, wells, and public buildings. Children run across courtyards where soldiers once waited for orders. Few remember the exact location of Semele's house. Dionysus remembers. He finds the place beneath a grove of mature trees. Only a low foundation remains. Wildflowers grow between broken stones. He kneels and touches the earth. There is no vision, no divine voice, only stillness. For many years he imagined returning here would awaken some final answer about his mother's death. It does not. Loss does not always reveal a hidden purpose. Sometimes it simply becomes part of the ground upon which life continues. Semele now lives among the immortals. Yet the mortal woman she once was remains connected to this place. The young woman who loved, who trusted, who feared, who made one fatal request. Dionysus no longer judges her for it. He no longer judges himself for surviving. This is the peace he came to find. Before leaving, he pours a small cup of wine onto the earth. Not an offering from God to mortal, a gift from son to mother. Then he continues. The road turns north toward Mount Nisa. The journey takes many days. He walks slowly, stopping often in villages that do not recognize him. At one house, a family shares a meal with him, though they have little food. At another, a widower allows him to sleep beside the hearth during a storm. The kindness of strangers still moves him. Divinity has not made ordinary generosity seem small. It has made it seem sacred. When he reaches Nisa, Winter has begun touching the higher slopes. The sacred grove is quiet. Branches move gently beneath cold wind. The spring flows exactly as it always has. Dionysus walks among the trees, remembering the hidden child who once believed every shadow might contain danger. He can almost see himself there, small, curious, listening for footsteps, waiting for someone to explain why he could not live openly. The memory no longer wounds him. He feels compassion for that child. Perhaps this is another form of healing. To look backward without anger. He sits beside the spring until night. Stars appear one by one through the branches. The same stars once watched over his infancy. The same stars watched Ariadne awaken abandoned upon Naxos. The same stars shone above Thebes before tragedy. Human lives change beneath them. The stars seem eternal. Yet even stars, he has learned from older gods, eventually fade. Nothing escapes transformation. Not kingdoms, not bodies, not memories, not even the heavens. The thought brings comfort rather than fear. The next morning he climbs beyond the grove toward the highest ridge. From there, he sees mountain after mountain disappearing into pale distance. The world appears vast, even after centuries of wandering. There remain valleys he has never entered, shores he has never touched, and people who will never know his name. Once, this might have troubled him. Now it does not. No life, mortal or divine, can experience everything. Wholeness does not require possession of the entire world, only presence within the part given to you. From Nysa, Dionysus travels west. He visits ports where merchants speak languages unfamiliar even to him. Yet the sound of laughter remains recognizable. So does the silence of grief. He enters a tavern during heavy rain. Inside, sailors sit around rough wooden tables, exhausted after weeks at sea. One man sings badly. Another complains loudly about the weather. A third stares into his cup, thinking of a home he may never see again. Dionysus joins them. No miracle occurs. He listens. That is enough. By midnight, stories begin flowing. A sailor speaks about his daughter. Another remembers a brother lost during a storm. Someone starts a song everyone knows. The room slowly changes. Not because hardship disappears, because isolation does. Dionysus recognizes the pattern immediately. This has always been the deeper meaning of his gift. Wine alone never created fellowship. People did. The cup merely gave them a reason to sit together. The journey continues through changing seasons. Spring flowers replace winter frost. Summer heat returns. Then autumn once again colors the hills. Everywhere Dionysus travels, he sees traces of his life reflected in others. A young mother protecting her child from danger. A traveler seeking belonging in a foreign land. A woman rebuilding herself after betrayal. A proud ruler refusing advice. An artist hiding fear behind confidence. A grieving son standing beside his mother's grave. None know that a god watches them. None need to know. Their lives are not symbols created for him. They are their own complete stories. This realization marks another change. In youth, Dionysus saw the world as something he might transform. Now he understands the world has always been transforming him as well. Every mortal encounter shaped his compassion. Every rejection tested his pride. Every loss widened his understanding. He gave humanity wine, theater, ritual, and sacred release. Humanity gave him wisdom. Near the end of the journey, he returns to Naxos. Evening settles over the island, exactly as it did the first time he arrived. The beach lies quiet beneath a violet sky. Waves move slowly across the sand. Ariadne waits near the water. She looks toward him with the same calm strength that first grew from sorrow long ago. Did you find what you were seeking? Dionysus stops beside her. I found that I was no longer seeking. She understands. They walk together along the shore. Above them, Ariadne's crown glows among the stars, placed there in ancient memory as a sign that abandonment did not become the final shape of her life. Dionysus looks upward. For once, he does not think about the future. No prophecy calls him. No enemy waits. No divine test approaches. Only the sea, the stars, the woman he loves, the long path behind him. The god of transformation has spent his existence teaching that nothing remains unchanged. Yet this quiet moment reveals something equally important. Some forms of love survive every transformation, not by remaining identical, by changing together. And as night deepens across Naxos, Dionysus finally understands that the greatest journey was never from one country to another. It was the journey from fear to trust, from exile to belonging, from grief to compassion, from the child hidden in darkness to the God who taught the world how to step into the light. Winter settles quietly across the vineyards. The leaves have fallen. Bare vines stretch along wooden supports beneath pale skies. The earth appears empty, almost lifeless. Frost gathers upon the stones before dawn, and the paths between the rows harden beneath the cold. To anyone seeing the vineyard for the first time, it might seem that the season has destroyed everything. Dionysus knows better. Life has simply withdrawn beyond sight. You walk beside him through the silent fields of Naxos. Ariadne has remained near the house, where lamps glow warmly behind shuttered windows. The night is still hours away, yet the sun already hangs low, casting long blue shadows across the ground. Dionysus stops beside an old vine. Its trunk is twisted and dark. Nothing green remains upon it. He places one hand against the rough wood. Deep beneath the frozen surface, roots continue waiting. This hidden survival has always belonged to his story. He was conceived in secrecy, born through fire, carried within the body of Zeus, hidden among the nymphs, driven across the world by forces that wished to silence him. He descended into the realm of the dead and returned with Semele. Again and again, what appeared to be an ending became the beginning of another form. For this reason, many ancient worshippers understood Dionysus not only as the god of wine and celebration, but as a figure connected with death, renewal, and the mysterious continuation of life. The grape itself carried the lesson. It was cut from the vine, crushed beneath human feet, its skin broken, its juice sealed in darkness. Then slowly and visibly it transformed. What entered the jar as sweet liquid emerged as something entirely different. Ancient people watched this process without the scientific knowledge later generations would possess. Fermentation must have seemed almost miraculous. The dead fruit appeared to awaken into a living drink, bubbling and changing in shadow. Dionysus became the divine presence within that mystery, not because he prevented destruction, because he revealed that destruction and transformation are not always the same. One evening, a farmer named Theron approaches him at the edge of the vineyard. Theron is old. His back has bent after decades of carrying baskets and cutting vines beneath the summer sun. His wife died during the previous spring, and since then he has worked mostly in silence. He does not recognize Dionysus. To him, the god appears as another traveler watching the winter fields. Nothing to see now, Theron says. Dionysus looks toward the bare rows. There is always something to see. The vineyard is asleep. Do you believe it will wake? The farmer sighs. It always has. And yet you still worry. Theron studies him. I worry that one year it will not. The answer contains more than concern for vines. Dionysus hears it. The old man is not thinking only about spring. He is thinking about his own body, his own approaching silence, the wife who did not return when the flowers opened. They walk together between the rows. Theron tells him about their life. A marriage of 47 years, 4 children, 2 lost before adulthood, a house repaired after earthquakes, arguments over money, laughter during harvests, long winters spent sharing stories beside the hearth. Nothing grand, nothing poets would normally preserve. Yet to Theron, it was the entire world. I keep expecting to hear her call from the doorway, he says. Dionysus does not tell him that the dead remain nearby. He does not promise a reunion. He has walked through Hades and understands that comforting words should not pretend to know more than the heart can bear. Instead, he asks, what did she plant? Theron points toward a small fig tree growing near the outer wall. She planted that when our first daughter was born. The branches are bare. Dionysus walks toward it. She remains in what she cared for. The farmer's eyes fill with tears. That is not the same as having her here. No, the god does not argue. Symbols do not replace the dead. Memories do not warm an empty bed. Spring does not undo winter. Renewal is not reversal. This is one of the hardest lessons Dionysus has learned. He brought Semele from the underworld, but even she could not return to the mortal life she once knew. She became Thyone, transformed beyond death. The young woman of Thebes remained part of the past. Love survived. The old life did not. Theron sits beneath the fig tree. Dionysus joins him. For a while they listen to the wind moving through the branches. Will I see her again? The farmer finally asks. Dionysus looks toward the fading sky. I have seen that death is not empty. Theron waits. But I cannot tell you what shape your reunion will take. The honesty comforts him more than certainty might have. Before leaving, Dionysus helps the old farmer prune several vines. They remove dead wood carefully, cutting away what can no longer bear fruit, so the remaining plant will grow stronger when warmth returns. Each cut appears harsh, yet without pruning, the vine weakens. Ancient growers understood this rhythm well. Growth sometimes requires letting go. The lesson was never simple. People often use the language of renewal too quickly, as though grief must produce wisdom immediately, or suffering must always lead to improvement. Dionysus does not believe that. Some losses remain losses. Some wounds never become gifts. Transformation is not the claim that every tragedy was necessary. It is the possibility that life may continue without betraying what was lost. As winter deepens, festivals honoring Dionysus take on quieter forms. In some places, communities gather not for wild dancing, but for remembrance. Names of the dead are spoken aloud, cups are filled, and a small portion poured onto the earth. The gesture acknowledges two worlds. The living drink together. The dead receive their share. At one such gathering, Dionysus stands unseen beyond the torchlight. A mother speaks the name of her son. A soldier remembers a fallen companion. An elderly woman whispers the name of a sister no one else present ever met. Each name enters the night. None disappears completely. Dionysus understands why these rituals matter. Grief becomes unbearable when carried alone. Ceremony gives sorrow a shape, a beginning, a shared silence, a place to set the cup down. The god who once inspired ecstasy now also protects remembrance. The two powers are not opposites. Those who understand how brief life is often celebrate most deeply. Those who have mourned know the true value of laughter. Joy does not insult the dead. Sometimes it honors what they once loved. Months pass. The cold begins releasing its grip. Water runs again beneath melting frost. Birds return to the island in small restless flocks. Green shoots appear among the stones. One morning, Dionysus walks back to Theron's vineyard. The old farmer is already there. He stands beside the same vine they pruned together. Tiny buds have appeared along the dark wood. Theron touches one gently. It woke. Dionysus smiles. Yes. The farmer looks toward the fig tree. Its branches carry the first soft leaves of spring. For the first time since his wife's death, he allows himself to smile without guilt. The moment is small. No divine thunder announces it. No choir sings. Yet Dionysus recognizes it as sacred. Grief has not ended. Love has not faded. Life has simply made room for both. The seasons turn again. Flowers cover the hills. Vines climb towards sunlight. Soon, green fruit gathers beneath broad leaves, growing slowly through summer heat. Every grape carries the memory of winter within it. Every celebration contains echoes of those who are absent. Dionysus has become the god of this eternal return, not because he guarantees that everything lost will come back unchanged, but because he teaches that endings do not possess the whole story. The vine dies back. The roots remain. The fruit is crushed. The wine awakens. The mask is lowered. Another face appears. A mortal life ends. Love continues in forms no one can fully predict. At sunset, Dionysus returns to the highest hill of Naxos. Ariadne waits there beneath the first stars. Below them, the vineyards glow green and gold. She watches him carefully. You are thinking about death. I am. Are you afraid of it? He considers the question. Gods do not fear death as mortals do. Yet Dionysus has known its shadow more intimately than most immortals. I fear forgetting what it means to those who must face it. Ariadne takes his hand. You never will. Far beyond the island, people continue gathering in his name. Some dance, some sing, some sit quietly beside graves. Some lift cups to celebrate new births, marriages, harvests, or safe returns. Different rituals, the same truth. Life becomes precious because it changes. Love becomes courageous because it risks loss. And hope becomes meaningful, not when winter is denied, but when someone plants a vine knowing winter will come. Dionysus looks across the darkening sea. His biography is nearing its quiet conclusion, yet his life has no true final page. He remains wherever the world turns from one state into another, where grief finds a voice, where strangers become companions, where something broken begins, slowly and imperfectly, to grow again. Soon, only one question will remain. Why? After all these centuries, does humanity still remember him? The answer waits not upon Olympus, nor in any single temple, but within the hidden chambers of the human heart. The night is calm. A gentle breeze moves through the vineyards of Naxos, carrying the fragrance of ripening grapes, wild herbs, and the distant sea. Above, the stars shine with the same quiet certainty that watched over Semele, Mount Nysa, Thebes, Olympus, and every winding road between them. Nothing in the heavens seems hurried. The earth itself appears to breathe more slowly. You stand beside Dionysus one final time. He no longer resembles the frightened child hidden from Hera's anger, nor merely the wandering teacher carrying ivy through foreign lands, nor only the god welcomed at last among the Olympians. He has become something larger than every title ever given to him. He has become a story that people continue discovering inside themselves. Far below, the villagers are asleep. A few lamps still burn behind wooden shutters. Somewhere, a shepherd watches over resting sheep beneath the moon. Somewhere else, fishermen prepare their boats before dawn. In another home, a family quietly shares bread and a single cup of wine after a long day's work. None of them know a god is watching. None need to. Dionysus smiles gently. The greatest part of his work has never depended upon being recognized. It has always depended upon being lived. When historians study his myths, they often encounter contradictions. Some traditions describe him as gentle. Others emphasize terrifying divine power. One city honored him with peaceful harvest festivals. Another remembered ecstatic mountain rites. Some poets praised him as the protector of civilization through theater and community. Others feared the wild freedom that accompanied his arrival. For centuries, scholars have asked which version is correct. Perhaps all of them are. Human beings rarely fit into simple categories. Why should a god who understands humanity be any different? Dionysus never belonged entirely to one side of existence. He stood between civilization and wilderness, between joy and grief, between reason and emotion, between life and death, between mortal and divine. His entire biography became a bridge connecting worlds that people often believe cannot meet. Perhaps that is why his story refuses to disappear. Every generation discovers those same divisions within itself. The child becoming an adult, the stranger becoming family, the grieving heart learning to laugh again, the proud mind discovering humility, the lonely soul finding companionship around a shared table. Transformation never ends, neither does Dionysus. As you walk with him through the sleeping vineyards, he pauses beside a single vine whose fruit hangs heavy beneath broad green leaves. He gently lifts one cluster into the moonlight. Every grape began as a tiny blossom. Every blossom survived wind, rain, blazing heat, hungry birds, uncertain weather, and countless invisible dangers before reaching this moment. Nothing beautiful arrived without passing through change. He remembers his own life. Semele's laughter before fear entered her heart, the unbearable brilliance that took her from the world, the warmth of Zeus's protection, the quiet kindness of the nymphs who never asked whether he deserved love, the first sweetness of wild grapes, the lonely road stretching toward unknown horizons, the cruelty of Lycurgus, the broken trust that left Ariadne alone upon a silent shore, the sorrow of Pentheus, the descent into Hades, the embrace of his mother, the welcome upon Olympus, the songs, the theatre, the harvests, the masks, the countless ordinary people whose names history never preserved. Looking back, he realizes something unexpected. The greatest miracles of his life were never the supernatural ones. Not surviving inside Zeus, not descending into the underworld, not walking among immortals. His greatest miracle was simpler. Again and again, after every reason to close his heart, he chose to leave it open. That choice changed everything. Many ancient myths celebrate strength. Others admire wisdom. Some praise beauty. Dionysus teaches something quieter. Resilience without tenderness eventually becomes hardness. Joy without compassion becomes selfishness. Freedom without responsibility becomes destruction. But when celebration remembers sorrow, when courage remembers fear, when love remembers loss, transformation becomes healing. This may be his truest gift. Far away. Morning begins touching the eastern horizon. The stars slowly fade. Birdsong returns one careful note at a time. The vineyard awakens. Workers will soon arrive, carrying woven baskets across their shoulders. They will prune vines, mend fences, laugh together, complain about the weather, and stop at midday to share food beneath the shade. Life continues. It always has. It always will. Dionysus turns toward the rising sun. He no longer needs to wonder because he is searching for himself. He wonders because every new generation deserves someone to remind them that change is not always something to fear. Sometimes it is how life quietly saves us. Ariadne joins him once more. She looks across the vineyard glowing beneath the first golden light. They will remember you. He shakes his head softly. They will remember themselves. She understands immediately. His myths have never been instructions for worship alone. They are invitations. Invitations to look honestly beneath the masks we wear. To sit beside strangers until they become friends. To celebrate without forgetting those who are absent. To grieve without believing grief is the end of the story. To welcome each season of life, knowing none will remain forever. This is why his festivals endured. Why theatres filled with audiences year after year. Why vineyards continued spreading across hillsides. Why poets returned to his name. Why artists painted ivy around his brow. Why philosophers argued over his meaning. Every generation recognized another piece of itself within him. The morning sun climbs higher. Mist rises gently from the earth before disappearing into warm air. The world begins another ordinary day. Children awaken. Bread is baked. Ships leave their harbors. Farmers inspect their vines. Actors rehearse their lines. Lovers forgive one another. Families gather around evening tables. Old friends lift cups together after many years apart. Elsewhere, someone quietly mourns. Someone else quietly hopes. The rhythm continues. Dionysus belongs to all of it. Not because every moment is joyful, because every moment is alive. He walks slowly toward the vineyard path. There is no grand farewell. No thunder from Olympus. No chorus proclaiming the end of an age. The god who spent his life teaching transformation understands that endings themselves are another transformation. As he disappears among the vines, sunlight catches the ivy upon his brow for one brief moment before the leaves vanish into the green. Perhaps another traveler will meet him one day beside a lonely road. Perhaps another grieving heart will discover unexpected laughter. Perhaps another frightened child will learn that being different does not mean being alone. The story remains unfinished because life itself remains unfinished. And now, as the morning grows brighter and the last stars fade beyond sight, you leave the vineyards with a quieter heart than the one you brought at the beginning. You remember the child hidden in fear, the wanderer searching for belonging, the lover who healed another's broken trust, the son who crossed death for his mother, the god who accepted both laughter and tears without asking either to disappear. Most of all, you remember that every season changes. Winter yields to spring. Sweet fruit becomes wine. Masks are removed. Broken hearts slowly heal. Roads eventually lead home. If Dionysus still walks beside humanity after thousands of years, perhaps it is because he reminds us that our lives are never defined by a single season. We are always becoming. And beneath the quiet stars, beyond the vineyards, beyond even the stories themselves, that may be the oldest mystery of all. Sleep well. The vines will still be growing when morning comes.